Testing?
Tech
Hello?
difficulties.
Tech difficulties. Alright, so this is going to be episode 1 of Fallen with Dallen, and I have my buddy Connor here. What are we drinking today?
Today, to celebrate what we're about to indulge in, we're going to have nice tall glasses of Writer's Tears, which is actually a Irish whiskey and not what you're thinking it is.
Let's cheers, sir. Would you tell our kind people what our topic is today and why any small slimmer of hope I had at ever being popular on the internet is going to go away?
So today we are going to talk about Robert Jordan's epic, The Wheel of Time. And if you think we're going to be complimentary about it, you've got another thing coming.
This is gonna be. We've been talking about this for a while. We've both been.
All we ask of you is that you use complete sentences in the comments.
Oh, come on, that's not fair. In honesty, we have friends who really enjoy this, and the one disclaimer is that we don't think our dislike of the show is not reflective of our dislike of these people. We just wish the books had never existed and we could burn them and then dance on the flames. That's.
But seriously though, if you do like this series, that's okay.
Yep.
That's perfectly fine, and we respect you for that.
We just don't respect the book.
However, we do not respect this series of books. And I have a expansive and detailed deck of cards in front of me.
I'm looking at a 3x3 set of note cards, and they're not just 3x3 note cards. There are stacks under each little section here, that a lot of which I don't know all about. I will start by a little bit of context, I think, for us. I read the first 2 and then halfway through the third before I hopped off the train. How far did you get?
I got 10 books into the circus.
I got wise before he did. He was more determined than me.
I got to the 2/3 mark of this series, and ladies and gentlemen, it was a journey. in the same way that hiking up Mount Everest with a bad ankle is a journey.
Okay, so before we completely tear into this nonsense, because we're going to, I do think it's fair to try and ask, why do you think this is so loved? Why do you think people like it? Because it is. People love this series. And they're not all just idiots, as much as that would make things easier. But I know people who I respect and who I would consider way smarter than me who love this series. And I hate it. What is the disconnect? What are they getting out of it?
Well, I think a lot of people love this series, and this is the most celebrated part of it, is that people like to call it an achievement in fantasy world building. And to an extent, it is. I'll talk more about this later because I have my own misgivings with it. But I mean, if you want a highly detailed fantasy world, you can look no farther than the Wheel of Time. It is detailed almost to its own detriment.
Okay, yes, I think it's a good point. And you think that is that arguably its best quality? Is this? But you kind of seem no, but it's.
Well, in my personal opinion, no. But for the people that like it, I think this is.
The world building, you think, is what really draws people in?
I think the world building is, and I know you asked me on Discord how this inspired Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I actually looked at an interview from him, and it was the world building aspect of it. He likes to talk about how there are scenes in the series, and there are scenes in the series, where people can be sitting down and looking at something like a water fountain, and because of their wildly different cultures, they have very different reactions to it. And while that is true, if you're looking for that kind of element in the story, that is certainly there, and I can see why people would like it. Certainly.
Yeah, I understand. Because that is, I guess, another thing, a little bit of context for me. My favorite living author is Brandon Sanderson. I'm also a big Tolkien fan. Original. And and a big C.S. Lewis fan. That's kind of where I'm coming from. What are some of your books that kind of people get a gauge of where you're at in your enjoyment?
I am much more into the dark fantasy side of things, although I enjoy all sorts of fantasy. But I think my favorite author of all time is Glenn Cook, who does the Black Company and Dread Empire series. Kudos if you've even ever heard of those.
You're like almost you're like a death metal hipster in terms of fantasy then, huh?
That's way too apt of a description. Dallen got it right on the nose. But no, Black Company's first trilogy of novels is, I think, my favorite trilogy of fantasy ever, because it manages to basically fully deconstruct all the tropes that you expect from fantasy, especially from a good versus evil story, which Black Company is. So that's kind of where I'm at in the spectrum. I enjoy things that kind of riff or lovingly deconstruct on tropes as opposed to celebrating them.
Does the Wheel of Time riff or deconstruct on tropes for you, Connor?
Yes and no. This series is built on tropes, but then Robert Jordan goes out of his way to remind you that these aren't like the tropes. Throughout the first several books, I think it's Perrin Ibarra goes all the time, talks about how this isn't like the way it is in the stories.
No, guys, for real, it's different, I swear.
but no, it is.
Well, actually, on that note, I think that leads really well into the first topic we had, which was when it didn't click for us, or when the series, we realized it was not going to be something we were going to enjoy.
So Dallen, when did this not click for you?
Pretty early into book 2. Book 1 was very generic, but I figured a lot of things I like start out a little generic before they get their footing. I felt like, oh, this is just a guy's legally different enough to be legal fan fiction of Lord of the Rings, which I know we want to judge this book on its own merits because everything is Lord of the Rings, but when we got to the point where there's a major plot point where one of the characters gets a cursed magical item that he hoards and begins to possess him and turn him into a half-wraith creature, I was like, okay, I get it. There's inspiration and then there's this. But I thought a lot of people struggled to get their own footing. We're both, what was it? You're semi-pro, I'd be amateur, whatever, writers. We both aspire to write, if nothing else. And we both admit that we've looked at older works and earlier works and realized that there was a bit more inspiration than maybe we intended, you know?
Well, and to break it down into brass tacks, there really are only two types of stories. Someone strange comes into town or someone leaves town.
Yes.
That is every story.
Yeah.
So it's hard. Originality, especially in a genre like fantasy, can be hard sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, Wheel of Time does kind of struggle to make an establishing identity definitely in the earlier books.
Which is where most of my stuff's more in the earlier.
By the time it gets to that establishing identity, it has severe structural problems, which is what I ran into by the time I had finished book 10, and I realized that these structural problems had mounted to the point that there was no way that I wanted to continue reading it. It had gotten to the point for me by the time I finished book 10, that's Crossroads of Twilight, I realized I had spent more time waiting for the series to be good than the series was actually rewarding me by being good.
Yeah. No. I made that realization a bit earlier for myself, but I'm a lot grumpy. You know, I'm less likely to give things a chance, honestly. I'm probably too sticklery, but I realized I was like, okay, the first one, didn't really like it. I felt like it didn't have its own identity, but whatever. First book weirdness, that's pretty normal. Second book, I was like, okay, nothing happened, but maybe, again, this is just a little bit filler. It's, there's middle book syndrome for trilogies a lot of the time. Maybe we're setting up for a lot of stuff. And halfway through the third book, it was all set up again, and I'm like, oh, this is just going to be set up forever. That never goes anywhere.
Well, and, I mean, one of my other favorite series is the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and basically every other book in that series is set up for what happens next.
But it pays it off.
But it's giving you regular payoffs to this, which is something that is severely lacking in the Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that later.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's for me when it didn't click for me. And you mentioned structural problems. Do we want to dig into those now, or do we want to?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go ahead.
Let's dive right in, folks.
All right. Us being complimentary, that the complimentary phase of this has officially ended.
Oh, that was a really sad complimentary phase.
Yeah. That was but the important things to come. So I'm gonna come out with the big guns.
Yeah.
Because I want to just thoroughly demolish anyone who's going to try to counter argument. And so my first set of notes here
there's several.
Yeah, is titled "This story has no dramatic tension." And I can.
Sorry, one other thing real quick. Just for the folks at home, it's going to be in the description, but this is an R-rated. We're going to talk. There's going to be language. We're going to discuss all sorts of content, violent sex, all that kind of stuff. If you're not into that, time to get off the train.
I'll try to warn you when I'm going to start cursing and talking about sex. It is going to happen. Brace yourselves.
But yeah, just fair warning.
Okay, so my first point is that this series has no dramatic tension. And I can break that down into kind of key 3 factors.
Okay, yeah.
Factor number 1 is just the actual basic premise of this series is fundamentally broken.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so the Wheel of Time, for those of you who don't know, is built around a world where there is both prophecy and reincarnation. And the main structure of this series is that our protagonist, Rand al'Thor, is the reincarnation of an epic hero named Luz Theron Telaman.
We haven't even had that much of the writer's tears yet.
I have a bad semi-stutter, so you may hear me fuck up a lot.
Don't worry. Just blame it on the writer's tears.
We'll blame it on the whiskey. So because he is Luz Theron's reincarnation, he's basically doomed to follow the same path that Luz Theron is. That he is going to become this epic hero of light, that he's going to strike down the Dark Lord Shaitan, bring balance to the world, and then go crazy and destroy it.
All right.
And that's basically the prologue of this first book is the end of Luz Theron's life, where he has gone insane, does not realize he's gone insane, and he has actually killed everyone he's ever known.
Yeah.
And then he has a moment of clarity where he realizes that, and he self-destructs it with his magic, and rips a hole in the world, basically.
So, just to stop you right there real quick, it's not uncommon in books we love to have both prophecy and or incarnation.
Yeah, no, that's a big point in the Wheel of Time, is that there is not in Wheel of Time, in Black Company, that series earlier I said I loved, where there is a hero that's reborn every so often called the White Rose, who basically is born and strikes down evil. And that's both reincarnation and it's a prophecy. Where the Wheel of Time falters is that the prophecy here is extremely detailed.
And straightforward.
Yes, it is. The hero is going to go here and do this. The hero is going to travel to the mighty fortress called the Stone of Tyr, and they will find not Caliburn in the middle of it, and draw it. I'm going to talk about the.
That was what I saw. Arthurian is one of the notes.
I have a whole segment on literary allusions in this, where I'm going to talk and yell about the Arthurian references. But yeah, so Rand's going to travel to the Stone of Tyr, he's going to draw not Caliburn, and then he's going to go somewhere else and do this. And he's actually in the center of 3 prophecies in this. You get to the end of, you get to the beginning of book 4, and you find out that he's also got this other prophecy with these other people, and then later on he's someone else's Messiah too. So it just spirals out of control.
Oh my gosh.
And the best part is a lot of these prophecies are really vaguely explained to the reader, but even though they have straightforward steps, you never actually get a full idea of what the prophecy is. So it feels like people are talking about the sequel to a movie you've never watched.
Oh my gosh, that's a great description. Yeah, I remember even they're talking about stuff, and they're like in the middle of book 2, they're like, well, don't you know you have to go to these mountains because the prophecy declares that such as. I'm like, wait, why didn't you read him the prophecy earlier?
Also, because there was a prophecy, I have to ask the question: who writes the prophecy?
Wait, they never. I just assumed they were going to get into that. They don't actually get into that?
As of book 10, the prophecy is called the Carathian cycle.
Uh-huh.
And as of book 10, there was no explanation as to who wrote it or how they divined it. And that's kind of a key step in the prophecy thing.
Oh my gosh.
So
why do they trust the prophecy? Who has the authority to
exactly no? And I was constantly waiting for a plot twist where one of the bad guys is going to go, "I wrote the prophecy," and this has all been preordained. But there is none of that.
Yeah.
At all.
Oh my gosh.
That was really disappointing.
I'm gonna Google who writes the Caribbean.
If you even get an answer for that, let me know.
Alright, keep going.
Watch it be in book 11. It's not, but watch it be in book 11. But here's the thing: you could salvage this. You don't need the prophecy at all. It's entirely superfluous. All you need to say is, Rand, you're the reincarnation of Luz Theron. And Luz Theron defeated evil, then went insane. Because you are his reincarnation, you are likely going to do the same thing. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Boom. By having a prophecy, and the last step of the prophecy is that by spilling Rand's blood on the slopes of Shai Ghul, which is discount Mount Doom, that's how Shaitan will then be defeated there.
Okay, yeah.
And then after that, there will be a breaking of the world. And so that means basically every minor step in this prophecy has no dramatic tension because you know Rand has to make it to Shai Ghul.
Oh yeah, you know he can't die.
You know he cannot die during a sword fight in the Stone of Tyr because he's not near Shai Ghul yet.
Yeah. Well,
so
I think you can do that well because I've seen books. There's a couple ways you can go about a prophecy that are actually interesting in my opinion. Because I think the fatal flaw here is that it's someone says this is going to happen and then this happens. There's nothing else interesting about it. You can do it happens in a way you don't expect. It can happen it can happen in a way you don't expect. It can happen. You could maybe have misinterpreted the prophecy. That's fun sometimes. But and alternatively, you could have the prophecy play out straight, but the main tension not be things related to the prophecy. Like you could know he's going to save the world or whatever, and so you don't focus on tension about Rand's life because you know he has to make it to the end. But the tension can be Jimmy Bob, his buddy, is I'm sure you're getting that, but Jimmy Bob, his buddy, isn't mentioned in the prophecy. Will he live or die? That kind of a thing.
That was a big point of it to me.
Yeah.
Except it gets very clear that a lot of the other protagonists do survive.
Yeah.
None of them are ever really placed in any kind of mortal danger. In fact, as of book 10, only one major character dies, and she dies at the end of book 5. But it does segue into my next point. So the last step of the prophecy is that he defeats evil, and then he brings ruining to the world in an event called the Breaking of the World. But what happens at the end of book 9 is... so I gotta talk about the magic system for a second.
Right.
You have male magic called Sidon and female magic called Sidor.
Right.
And basically what happened at the end of the last battle between good and evil is that the Dark One tainted the male magic. So anyone that channels it...
Who is the Dark One?
That's the Dark Lord Shaitan. Which sounds increasingly like someone's screen name on Discord. I can see that spelled in Leet speak.
Oh no!
But so what happens at the end of book 9 is that they actually cleanse Sidon. Rand teams up with Nynaeve, who is by that point has become an extremely powerful magic user, and she's also an angry farm woman. But we'll talk about that later. She becomes an expert healer, and through combining their powers, they're able to basically heal Sidon.
Okay.
But here's the thing, is that kneecaps the whole breaking of the world, because now Rand isn't going to succumb to his own power and have to be dealt with by his friends, which is what I was expecting to happen. Instead, I know now, it's going to be some kind of metaphorical thing, where...
The world will break and be rebuilt, and...
The world will break, by which I mean all the established doctrines of our previous nations are going to be eroded. So that really kneecaps the dramatic tension. But that's only really half the problem.
So I did Google it, and apparently the reason there's not an author is it's a collection, it's a hodgepodge of every prophecy ever about the dragon, written throughout thousands of years by people who apparently we just trust for foretelling. And also, if you tell the prophecy, you get put in prison. that's what Google says.
So
the wiki says.
That's stupid. All right, now is when I will probably be cursing a lot for our first segment in this.
Here we go.
Here's the other half of the problem with the dramatic tension in the series, and that is that the villains suck. So, Rand's main opposition comes in the form of Forsaken, who are 12 very, very dangerous, evil bad guys, that was redundant, that are expert magic users.
Okay. Where did they come from? What's their deal?
They were apparently all minions of the Dark One that were sealed away with him. And to herald the Dark One's returning, they have broken out of the prison.
Okay.
They are useless. These guys are some of the most ineffectual, sad villains I have ever seen. And there are a lot of reasons why. I think the biggest one, though, is that they're just Nimrods. Like, okay.
Well, I've met one of them, and I have some questions in a minute. But
if you've read to halfway through book 3, you've met 3.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
You could be forgiven for not realizing you met the first 2 because they go out like chump change. One of them gets killed by a tree man at the beginning,
and not Ent.
And then he gets killed by not Treebeard, and then the other 2 get owned by Rand in a trippy sequence at the end of book 1 that just doesn't make sense.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, those 3 guys that show up at the end of book 1 are Forsaken.
No,
and that is what is one of the strongest and the second strongest.
And they, oh my gosh.
And so here's a pro tip for any aspiring writers. If you have your strongest bad guy show up at the end of book 1 of a 14-book series and lose, congratulations, your villains suck. If you have him show up at the end of books 1, 2, and 3 and lose all 3 fights consecutively, he's an underdog sports character. At that point, I'm waiting for him to get a training montage and for the Rocky theme to start blasting out.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, just Shaitan sitting there at the gym.
Because this is this villain's name is Ishmael. He goes by another moniker called Balsamon, but that sounds like a bad Digimon name. So we're not going to call him that. His name is Ishmael, and I kid you not, he loses 3 times in the first 3 books consecutively, and the Robert Jordan still has him keep showing up like this guy's a big deal. No, if you lost to the hero and you show up for round 2, I'm just going to imagine you as that one guy who lost a bar fight that limps back inside going, I let you win!
Well, that is something you've been talking a lot about, dramatic tension, that I think is really, really like. Because even prophecy aside, maybe some people can look past that. It's like the people that go, I know what the plot twist is, but I just don't want to think about it. I just want to. You put that in the back of your head and you forget it.
Yeah.
My brain doesn't work that way, but fine if yours does. But my problem is, even that aside, even if you remove the prophecy, the fact that the villains are so ineffectual, but the story treats them like they are the biggest crap ever. And I don't understand that, because these people are terrified. I'm like, you were beat by a few farm boys, and I guess that's just because the prophecy or whatever.
Ishmael and Agenor, who are considered the strongest and second strongest, respectively, are both beaten by Rand when he has no idea what he's doing with magic.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it. Your story's villains have lost at that point. They are never going to face a villain stronger than Ishmael.
Well, you know what's really interesting? I will say this, is that spoilers for... Oh no, you haven't seen Red Mistborn 1. I can't do that. Crap! Okay. I'll say slight spoilers for Mistborn 1. The main threat, who is considered the biggest, baddest threat of the first book, and you think you can't go higher than this. Spoilers, it does. But the way they keep tension up for that, for book 2, where it feels like there's not as big of a threat, is that the big bad guy actually isn't directly killed by the main heroine, who's supposed to be the underdog, Vin. She has a whole crew behind her, and the people that open up for the opportunity for them to win are these people who are way more experienced. So they do beat this huge big bad guy, but it's not done because she's just the greatest and has superpowers and all that, and she is cool, but it's because people way more experienced than her, who spent a long time studying this, did it. So it keeps that dramatic tension, because they're not always going to be around to protect her, and at some point she's going to have to face these things on her own, so there's still that tension. In this, it is just Rand!
Yeah. This is Rand, who gets magic, has no idea what he's doing, teleports around, and owns people.
Wait, you were going to talk about the teleporting at some point, too, right?
No, I'm going to get... I have that. That's
later.
Okay. That is going to be on this card. I have a couple other points I want to make. So, first off, as you get further into the series, you get a lot of one-off scenes with the Forsaken to establish that they're evil. And it is some of the most hilarious shit, because you basically have these one-off scenes where the Forsaken do something that never actually directly connects to the plot. That's just them mustache twirling and being evil.
Like in the beginning of book 2, that whole scene.
Like in the beginning of book 2, you have this big conglomerate of bad guys meet, and Ishmael is disseminating orders to all of them. None of them ever actually do anything. It's just the only one of them that does do something is this guy named Jaichim Karadin, except he's so ineffective at what he's doing that eventually Shaitan himself basically has to send his number one not Forsaken minion to talk to this guy and say, hey, get your shit together.
Oh my gosh. That's like, I'm just trying to imagine, again, I'm sorry, I'm pulling for Lord of the Rings, but I'm trying to imagine the ring wraiths are having a business meeting, like, all right, we lost the Hobbit.
Okay, so I told Dallen before we started this that I want to try to directly avoid direct comparisons.
But I'm doing it anyway.
But I am going to have to, because I know Wheel of Time fans get their panties in a wad every time someone mentions Tolkien around them. But I am going to have to draw a few comparisons. I'm going to keep them as scant as I can. Mm-hmm. But let's compare the Forsaken to the Nazgul for a second. The Nazgul are a military unit that are proactive in what they do.
Yeah.
They hunt. Mm-hmm. They are not making reactionary decisions. They're not sitting in palaces pining about what they're going to do. They're not actively trying to undercut each other. Mm-hmm. Sauron tells them, go hunt and kill, and what do? Mm-hmm. They hunt and kill. That's all they do.
Arguably, the difference, I'm trying to give this, potentially the difference is the idea that they're puppets, whereas the Forsaken are humans with wills.
You can make that argument, but at the same time, some of the Nazgul, though it's not really heavily showcased in the story, do have a degree of autonomy.
Well, you're right, because they talk.
Such as the Witch King of Angmar.
Yeah.
So, and Witch King of Angmar is like in my top 10 fantasy villains, because the dude's freaking intimidating.
Oh, he is
intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
But the Forsaken are not that. And they spend so much time undercutting each other that they are ineffective at what they do.
Yeah. So I think the counter argument there is maybe they do have wills, and so they're trying to be different villains than the Nazgul, but they're less effective villains than the Nazgul.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Because the Forsaken were present at the last battle against Lews Therin.
Which is how long ago?
3,000 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And they were sealed away with Shaitan, and so they have spent 3,000 years in discount hell inside off-brand Mordor to think about what they did wrong. And they get out of hell to do this whole battle again, and they're doing it the exact same way they did last time, not even acknowledging the fact that the reason they lost last time was because they failed at being a cohesive unit.
Yeah.
Okay, so the definition of insanity is that you do the same thing over and over expecting different results. That is what they are doing.
Well, you would think after 3,000 years, you would have you could go one or two ways with it. That's really interesting. Either you're this cunning, supernatural force that has had literally millennia to think about what you're going to do, which is an interesting way, or it's warped your mind so much you're barely human and you go to that puppet route. These are neither. These are just...
But when we meet them, obviously their minds have not been warped.
No, they're just
dumbasses.
They're just dudes. They're just dudes who are like, I want to do it this way.
And they are... These guys, it takes them until book 6 to become moderately threatening, and they are at the level of threatening that I expected them to be at book 1.
Oh yeah,
and that doesn't happen until book 6.
Yeah,
which that is a severe problem with establishing tension in the story. If it takes till the 1/3 mark of this story for your villains to start getting, not to actually get their shit together, but to start acting like it's together, you have failed at some point in establishing them as villains.
So why do you think it's structured in such a way that honestly makes the villain feel like the one with less of their stuff together? Is that intentional?
Okay,
or?
I think this is my tinfoil hat theory, is that I think Robert Jordan, because of the way this magic system works, wrote himself into a corner, and he had to say the Forsaken are so caught up in their own schemes to prevent them from being able to do what I'm about to talk about.
Because if they were really effective...
So a big part of this magic system is that there is teleportation. It's not technically called that, but you have traveling and skimming. Traveling allows you to go anywhere you want as long as you know your starting point, and skimming is the inverse.
Okay.
So the idea is that you can travel instantaneously to somewhere, and then you can skim back to where you started.
Right, okay.
So, and people can do this. And it's not like a...
what kind of people can do this?
Basically, by the time you get around book 7... most magic users can do this.
All right, yeah.
It's not like you have to be super strong, or you have to have multiple magic users combining powers to do this. It's like single people can do this.
All right.
So why don't the Forsaken just travel straight to Rand? And they have this other magic called Balefire that lets you burn people backwards in time, effectively erasing them from existence. Why don't you just travel to Rand while he's asleep in bed and hit him with Balefire and you won?
Do they not know where Rand is for the entire...
No. Because of the way traveling works, you don't need to know where you're going.
Just
you need to know your starting point.
Oh.
And there are villains that can actively track Rand through the duration of the series.
Okay.
Samael, one of the Forsaken, Samael demonstrates this because he is constantly teleporting minions to where Rand is.
But not anyone that could actually do anything.
Yeah. At one point, and there's a battle that begins in book 4 where Samael has managed to infiltrate people into Rand's new fortress by using this. And then another Forsaken, Lanfear, counters Samael's attack by bringing her own forces in. So they have this epic teleportation ability and don't use it. And you're going to, diehard fans are going to say, yeah, but Rand is an order of magnitude stronger than the strongest Forsaken.
I was going to ask, isn't he basically just this book's Jesus?
Yes, he is. I actually have a card.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
So people are going to argue that why isn't why they wouldn't do this is because Rand is an order of magnitude stronger than him. And he is, and that is in itself its own problem. But it's also established that multiple magic users joining power can overpower Rand. That actually happens in one book, and it's one of the only interesting scenes in this. Well, here's the thing, is that two Forsaken, a male and a female, because if you have a male and a female combining powers...
You have the whole...
Yeah, they get infinitely stronger. If you had a male and a female Forsaken combined, they are already stronger than Rand.
Yeah.
If you have two males joined by a female, that's it. That's as powerful as you can ever become with three people. So they can teleport to Rand with that, and they win.
Yeah.
There is nothing Rand can do to stop them.
Rand couldn't get a female and another male magic user to counter them?
Because the the ones he has around him wouldn't be at the same level as those.
Right, because he's fantasy Jesus.
So I think Robert Jordan, when he made this match system, realized he had written himself into a corner for that, and his only defense against it is to have the Forsaken behave so idiotically that they would never be able to conceive of such a plan. But to talk about how effective this strategy would be, I'm going to compare this to another story that I'm fond of, and this actually is a comic book. It's called Annihilation, which was made by Marvel Comics. It was the big reboot for a character named Star-Lord.
Yeah.
If you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, you know who he is. During this, the main villain of the series, his name is Annihilus, because of course.
Comics.
He and his army managed to get teleportation technology from Thanos, and with it, they were able to teleport anywhere in the galaxy. Period.
Okay.
Star-Lord is leading all the nations of the galaxy together to try to stop Annihilus, and he has this galaxy-destroying army called the Annihilation Wave. When the Annihilation Wave gets this teleportation technology, they have won the war.
Yeah.
Like literally, Star-Lord's army comes to him and says, yeah, our government's told us that we are unilaterally surrendering right now because Annihilus's elite soldiers have shown up in our nation's throne rooms.
Yeah.
Which is what you can do when you can teleport unrestrictedly.
Yeah.
There is nothing stopping the Forsaken from hopping around from every throne room in the 12 kingdoms in the Wheel of Time, and just popping up in front of every king and saying, hey, I'm Samael, and you've already lost the war.
Yeah.
And if you don't agree to surrender to me right now, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. Well, that's something that, and I don't think Harry Potter is the brilliance of all things, but that's one of the things even Harry Potter, which is ostensibly a children's fantasy story, did right off the bat was you cannot teleport in or out of Hogwarts. Remember, that's one of the... Or have you not read... Have you watched the movies even?
I read the first Harry Potter.
That's okay.
It just wasn't my thing.
I get it. They're over. I agree. They're overhyped. I enjoyed them. But anyway, that's one of the first things she does is because they have teleportation magic too. The first thing they establish is that Hogwarts, which is where most of the things happen, you cannot teleport in or out of it because it would do that exactly. All the Death Eaters have to find other ways in, and that actually prevents the very problem you're talking about. I figure if a children's book series can do this, why can't an adult fantasy one?
Yeah, no. So Robert Jordan just... I genuinely believe that he wrote himself into a corner and he had to make the villains idiots to get himself out. But
weren't they idiots before that's established, though?
Yeah. They're double stupid. And now we're going to talk about how they get to the triple stupid level.
Oh, boy.
Because the main plan... The main plan that Shaitan has going on here is that he doesn't want to kill Rant.
He wants him to join him, right?
Yeah, he wants him to join Rant. Okay, one, no. Just no. Two, the way they want to get Rand to join him is that they have this... so there's this one faction called the Shan-Chan Empire, and they have callers that they can put on matches. I'm going to talk about how they messed that up.
I was going to say, that's one of the almost interesting points. I want to hear what you say, but that's one of the few things that, through the fog of me reading this and feeling like I was wasting my time going, oh, that's an interesting idea.
But they, the Forsaken find out that there is that the Shan-Chan had made an experimental caller for male channelers.
Oh, okay.
And that they want to try to get that on Rand. Now, I have to say, the amount of resources you would have to expend to keep and detain Rand until you can effect this plan would be counterproductive to the amount of resources and effort you would spend having to just kill him with the aforementioned teleport tactic.
Well, yeah, and what does the big bad guy get by Rand joining him? Isn't he basically all-powerful anyway?
They never explain that. Okay. I guess he just wants it because shits and giggles.
That sounds about on par. That's about right.
So, the villains in this are terrible. And these are just the main villains. The sub-villains are bad, too.
Well, I had a question about the sub-villains, because I hopped off, but I've always wondered in the back of my head, I gotta hear more about Rand's Mirror Universe girlfriend. Does she come up later, or can we talk about this now?
She is one of the Forsaken.
Oh my god.
Her name is Lanfear. I'm going to talk about her later.
Okay, then I'll wait.
The gist of her is that she is his past self's crazy ex-girlfriend.
I gotta hear more about it, because when I got to that point in the book, I was like, I mean, there's a lot of obviously evil people here, but she shows up in an alternate dimension and starts going, what if you left your friends and walked away with me? Yes. And he's like, that sounds pretty reasonable. I got to think about that.
You have some other villains, and I'm going to touch on them in other segments of this. But I do, just to give the rundown, you have Jaishim Karadin, who is a spy for the Dark Ones that is in this paramilitary group called the White Cloaks, which are basically the fantasy KKK. And
I read about the White Cloaks. Wait, Forsaken's in charge of the White Cloaks?
One of their minions is a high-ranking member.
Whoa, okay.
His name is Jaichim Karadin. He's an idiot.
Wait, he's the guy. He was in a book and he wanted to kill the wolves, and the other guy didn't want to kill the wolves, right?
Yeah, he's one of them. Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
That guy is. They build him up like he's gonna do something.
Yeah, he seemed
impactful, and he never does.
Oh. That's sad, because he seemed like an anti-Aragorn almost, like a ranger type dude who's like actually in the pocket of the bad guys, or is on a zealous mission at least. I don't know, but he didn't do anything.
You have Peyton Fane, who is the merchant from the first book.
Oh my gosh!
He gets this dagger made out of evil.
I remember that. Wait, what's his face had it? Matt had it?
Yeah, Matt has it, but then...
that's the thing I was talking about at the beginning from book one.
But then Peyton Fane gets it from Matt, and becomes this demi-Forsaken thing, and he is the definition of that guy who's a bad guy because he just pimps around from scene to scene, acting like he's evil, but he never actually does anything to harm anyone.
He just walks around and is like, hello! I would hate if something bad happened.
Every time there's a confrontational scene, he books it the hell out of the story.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, yeah, dude, you have this dagger that kills anyone with one cut, and you don't want a chance to sword fight with it. Well, like, what kind of villain are you? You're useless.
It's his Precious, though. Very original, copyrighted Precious.
But then you have, so you have Luke Bernhard, or as he's otherwise known as, Isam, who is a Dreadlord.
Luke Bernhard sounds like a really bad porn name.
Yes, it does. And then his other, the nickname the wolves give him is the Slayer, which is
also sounds like a really bad porn name. Yeah. All right, sorry. What about him though?
The last guy on set in the '70s orgy.
Oh no!
But no, so Perrin first encounters him in the dream world, because the wolves also they exist.
Can we talk about the dream world?
I'm going to later. The wolves
and how the dream world is not the in between realms world, which is also not hell.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
The dream world, the wolves exist both in the physical world and in the dream world. And
sure.
If they die, no, I actually can buy the wolves being like this primal force of nature.
Mm-hmm.
I can buy that, and that's probably one of the few interesting things about the series. But if you kill a wolf in the real world, its spirit can live on in the dream world.
Okay.
And if you kill a wolf's spirit in the dream world, it dies in the real world too.
Okay, fair.
So Perrin, who is one of the characters, can commune with the wolf spirits.
Yeah, he's like a werewolf dude.
Yeah, and he's
like the one character I liked when I read.
When he gets back to his hometown, because they have to have a scouring of the Shire parallel, he gets back to his hometown and he finds out that all the wolves have died because there was the Slayer running around in the dream world killing the wolf spirits. And
why does the Slayer do this?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Actually, it's because the wolves are inherently good.
And he's inherently evil.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, obviously.
Yeah, but...
Can I point out, I know I'm derailing you for half a second, can I point out something about that, though? And I'm sorry, Tolkien is what I love, I'm sorry, but here's one thing that bothered me, because I think a lot of people rightfully would point out that Sauron doesn't have a lot of motivation. I mean, you read the Silmarillion and maybe you get some more, but generally in his own book, Sauron is a force of evil. He is inherently that. But what I think is different about him is that he's not a POV character. He is treated as a force of nature. You never go up to Sauron's tower and hear Sauron, give his orders to the minions or things like that. You're always seeing him from a distance. He has the same effect that the shark has in Jaws.
Yeah.
You glimpse him. He is a force. He is treated like a force of evil, and that's why he's the motivation of a force of evil.
In fairness, Shaitan himself is portrayed almost like this.
No, he shows up in dreams all the time, and
that's Ishmael.
I'm sorry. They're different characters. I'm getting a little slow.
That's Ishmael.
Okay.
Though there is at least one scene where one of the Forsaken, Demandred, goes to speak with Shaitan, and it's the most cheesy villain scene, where he walks in and Shaitan is like he's this pit of lava inside a mountain, and he speaks in all caps.
Oh no, he doesn't. Yes. Does he actually?
Yes, he does.
Oh my god!
And it is the most cliche villain dialogue. It's like you know that forbidden magic. Are you willing to fight a war with it? Yes, my lord. It is. It is so sad.
Oh no. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to derail, but I had to ask about that.
Yeah, so you have Isam, who's kind of interesting because he's got multiple personality disorder, basically.
Okay, you can do stuff with that.
No, and it's because he's actually using the other magic system, because there's a second one.
I'm sorry. Oh, what?
Yeah, I'm going to talk
I didn't even get to that.
Yeah, when we get to magic systems, there's actually a second one. But... So
Hello,
he's
darkness, my old friend.
he's using the second magic system, which apparently makes you go actually insane, as opposed to the magic.
Wait, but I thought the male half made you go insane too. Most magic just makes you go insane, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna talk.
Why are the women okay?
Yes.
Okay.
we're gonna talk about this.
Okay.
All right. So you have that. You have the Black Aes Sedai, who the Aes Sedai are the lady magic users.
Yeah, the ones that are good, quote
and
unquote.
they're divided up into sub factions that are color coded for
your convenience.
For your convenience. To be fair, when the Aes Sedai have their civil war, it's not just like all these colors are good and all these colors are bad. Though there is a bit of that.
Yeah, but some are split, right?
Yeah, some of them are split.
You
It's like all the blue ones are good and all the red ones are bad, but the other ones are split.
You have to give him credit to his dedication, at least. I don't enjoy this, but this is a man who clearly, I think, enjoyed what he did.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think he had a lot of fun writing this series. It's just not a good series.
I agree, but there's one part of me that says, here's the difference. I've written stuff that I don't think was good or wasn't necessarily meant to be published and read en masse, and it was just fun for me, and I like that. The difference is this was published, and so we're going to treat it like a published...
This was published. I have spent money on it and days of my life reading it.
Yes.
And I feel I deserve recompense.
Yeah.
Hence why we're here.
Yeah, that's true. Yep, there you go.
So you have the Black Aes Sedai, who are in the story. They are basically end of level bosses because you have some of the side characters, Nynaeve, Egwene, Elaine, are traveling around. Their whole subplot to the series is they're traveling around countering the Black Aes Sedai while Rand deals with them.
And they don't even show up till like the second or third book, if I remember.
Elaine doesn't become a character until the second book. She's cameos in the first one. Nynaeve and Egwene are...
Well, I meant the Black Sedai, because I remember they're hinted at, and they say, those don't really exist.
The Black Aes Sedai really aren't a thing until the third book.
Yeah.
And basically what happens is Nynaeve, Egwene, Elaine travel, starting from book 3 onward, they travel somewhere, run into a couple Black Aes Sedai, beat them, end of level boss, they level up.
Okay.
That's basically the story arc for them.
What if I told... Conspiracy theory tinfoil hat. This man actually really... didn't want to make a book. He wanted to make his very home rule D&D campaign, and he played it with a lot of his friends, and that is what made this.
I don't know. I don't know.
Because that would explain a bunch of side characters. You get bored with this character, you go off to a campaign that has nothing to do with anything, and you just warp it in. Thoughts?
That's endemic of the series, is that there's so much digression and more pile on.
And why is that? Why didn't his editor stop him?
Because his editor was his wife. I'm calling it like it is.
It is. Why didn't she stop him? No, more the writer's tears.
Okay, we're on round 2 of
We're on
whiskey
round
now,
2
folks.
of the writer's tears. Oh,
I think Dallen's going to have a tally on screen.
Oh, I'm sure at some point. It's just the image gets progressively droopier. Oh, do you know what I'm going to have running in the background for this?
What?
The Wheel of Time game PS1 cutscenes are going to be in the background while he talk.
Excellent. All right.
So his wife
So
edited this, though.
Okay, so we spent enough time. We're getting derailed.
Let's
go on to talking about the protagonists now.
Right. So I did have characters, because that was kind of... We went over the structural problems, which are big. Yeah. The characters should be... Because I've read books that have really bad structures, have really even bad plots. But if the characters... Okay, example.
Like, I've written books like that.
Yeah. So. Well, I enjoyed it. Your plots are actually usually have more thought put into it than this, I even think. Even your bad plots, I still think have more thought put into it than... Stuff happens, at least, you know what I mean? But I love Lunar Chronicles. Love is a strong word. I enjoyed those. I think the plots are really bad and don't make a lot of sense, but the characters are so engaging that it gets me through this step-by-step plot, which is kind of because they're engaging. Why didn't that happen here?
Well, because you have 2/3 of your protagonists are just overpowered. You have your trio of main characters are Perrin, Rand, and Matt, who are basically 3 chosen ones pulled out of the Discount Shire, or Bargain Bin Shire, to go on epic quest. And So Perrin basically becomes a royalty-free Nordic berserker, complete with wolf spirits and axe.
I actually like Perrin.
And Perrin is easily the most likable of the three. The only thing I don't like about him is his girlfriend. We'll talk about that later.
I didn't get to her yet.
And I will curse nonstop as we speak about her.
Please do.
But the problem is you have Rand, who is a combination of King Arthur and Jesus.
What's the difference? For Rand.
Clearly. Rand is hilariously overpowered.
He beats the biggest bad guy, book 1, by mistake.
Yeah. And that's before he learns how to use his power.
yeah.
His handicap is that he's insane, except his insanity is like a mild inconvenience. Because and it actively helps him at some points.
Yeah.
Because at one point he gets during the Battle of Dumais Wells, he is captured, and the crazy voice in his head tells him how to escape.
Oh, okay.
That's not a handicap.
Wait, is the crazy voice in his head Shaitan or
No,
whatever?
the crazy voice in his head is his past self.
No! Wait, then who made him crazy?
Yes.
Okay.
So, there is...
the characters,
there is very little about Rand I like, and I realized the reason for that is because he is a blank slate protagonist. He has very little personality. And
Most personalities that he's worried he's going to go insane.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I realized that what he lacks is a sense of want.
Yeah.
He has nothing he wants. And then this is where I'm going to make the big comparison to Lord of the Rings. And actually, I think more often I'm going to make it as a comparison to The Hobbit. The key difference between Bilbo and Frodo and Rand is that Bilbo and Frodo ultimately wanted to leave the Shire.
Yeah.
It was their conscious decision, knowing that they weren't going to come back. Rand didn't make that call.
No, he was dragged off. He gets
drugged out by the ear. He whines about it, and he's almost just grudging and disparaging of the fact he has to be a hero.
He completely lacks agency through every book I read.
And it's obvious that he is just limping through this prophecy, doing it because the story says he has to do it. Versus Bilbo, who decides to be a burglar because he realizes that his whole life is being in a hobbit hole, and that's boring.
Yeah. There's something in
and
him.
He would rather go out and risk being eaten by a dragon and never come home than spend the rest of his life there.
Yeah.
Frodo would rather go out and destroy Mordor than be left in the Shire knowing that darkness might catch up.
Yeah. I think agency is the big difference. Because I even think it would have been interesting. Here's something... I don't know how it would have worked out. I'm not sure it would have made for a good story, but would have made for a different and more interesting story is if he had actively tried to counter the prophecy. Not like, I don't want to, but like, what if if you want to give him agency?
By book 5, he rolls over and accepts it.
He's already done that. He just complains about it, and by book 5, he stops complaining about it is the only difference. Because he never at any point, seriously, he runs away at one point, kind of. That's the closest he gets to ever actively trying to fight the prophecy.
No, and Rand is just, because of all this, he's extremely boring, and it's clearly that he's meant to be some kind of just wish fulfillment self-insert.
He's not good. I don't want to be Rand.
And
do you know anyone who wants to be Rand?
Robert Jordan. And that's not even touching on the fact that Rand is at the center of a harem of female characters.
Oh, are we getting into that? Because we need to get into that.
That's going to be my next.
Okay, I'll wait.
But then the other one is Matt. So Matt's kind of...
I friggin' hate Matt.
Yeah, Matt's kind of the screwball. And initially I initially liked him just because he was kind of a buck the trend companion. Because you don't really see this companion that does more harm than good.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what he does.
Yeah, he just screws up constantly.
And for me, that was funny in the sense that, like, oh god, Matt's on scene. What's he going to do? But eventually, what happens is Matt gets this power that totes for real isn't magic, where he can distort probability. And it means that no matter how bad of a situation he winds up in, he always comes out on top.
So he just has plot convenience.
Yeah, no, he has the power of plot convenience. And to add insult to injury, on top of that, in book 5, they stumble into this city of magical relics, and one of them is this magic.
Wait! They did that in book 1.
No, they find a different one.
Oh my gosh!
The City of Magical Relics is called Ruidion. The one you're thinking of, Mashador.
I'm sorry.
You got it wrong, man. Now everyone's going to flame us in the comments.
They were on board until I said that there were Oh my gosh, go on.
They jumped ship on this the moment we said we didn't like it.
Please stop. Okay,
no.
so yeah,
he goes to Ruidion and he stumbles through this magic doorway that takes him into a pocket dimension.
Like you do.
Yeah, as you do.
Wait, is this different from Hell, which is different than the other pocket dimensions?
It's implied that this pocket dimension is almost part of the dream world, but kind of, but not really. Wait, and it's never fully explained, so don't ask me.
What about the in-between lanes? Are those something different too?
Yeah, those are something different. The ways are something different. So, yeah, so you have Shio Ghul, which is its own thing. You have the ways, and you have Teleron Riyadh. Say that 5 times fast. Which is the dream world, and then you have these pocket worlds too. And
that's not the mirror world either.
No, the Teleron Riyadh is also the mirror world.
That is the mirror world.
Yeah.
Aren't there multiple alternate realities too, or something like that? Yeah. Wasn't that implied? Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Go on.
This is a mess.
Okay.
So he stumbles through it, and he winds up in a pocket dimension where he runs into these 3 demons that grant him 3 wishes.
Why?
Yes.
Okay.
And and by this point he's had the magic dagger and he had it removed and he had the curse removed.
Yeah, I read up to that point.
But the thing is, the curse caused him to lose all of his memories since he got the dagger.
Yeah, I remember that.
He's untrustworthy of everyone, and he demands to have his memories back. And so they give him his memories back, along with all the memories of all of his past reincarnations.
Wait, he reincarnates a lot too?
Yeah, it turns out that he is the reincarnation of several different military leaders throughout history.
Why?
Yes.
Okay.
And with all of their memories intact, he becomes the greatest tactician on the planet.
No, he does not.
So he comes out of this doorway, and he also becomes a master.
I was gonna say, what's the third wish?
I don't even remember the other 2. This one's so galling. He comes out of the doorway with this as the greatest military tactician in history, and remains that way for the rest of the series. And he has the probability distorting powers on top of that.
Wait, that's not part of the wishes?
No, that's not part of the wishes.
Why? Where does that come from?
That's subordinate to this. And then, also, he has this bitchin' spear that has ravens engraved on it.
What does it do?
It's just a badass spear.
Oh, okay. I thought it just made women instantly have to sleep with him or something.
Oh, well, he also does that too.
Oh, okay. It's not the spear though. It's his other spear. Okay.
And I have to say that it has the ravens on it because it's meant that he's clearly meant to be a reference to Odin in Norse mythology by this point.
That's that card. We'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah, we'll get to the literary allusions later. So yeah, it's just he blunders through a doorway and comes out the most badass person in the story
at no cost to him.
Yeah, well, he technically the demons try to take his life by having him come out and immediately hang himself. Except Rand's right in front of him, so Rand.
Wait, why does he hang himself?
Yes.
Wait, no! You can't say yes this time. Why does he hang himself?
Because the demons need his life because Faustian deal.
Wait.
I'm telling you exactly.
No. Hold the phone. So the demon's thing is, we'll give you 3 wishes, and then you die. That's fine. They mind control him to hang himself, because the deal was, I get these wishes and then I hang myself, or you make me hang myself, whatever it is. That's all fine. But the deal was not, and then I kill myself. Just hang myself. After the first hanging attempt loses, they just give up?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah, because he hangs himself, and then Rand is like right in front of him and just saves him.
And then he's just like, the demon's like, aw, shucks, we should have specified that he had to die, too. Holy crap.
Yeah.
How did I not get, whoa. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to ask.
Yeah. So you wind up with...
These are our heroes.
Yeah, these are our heroes, ladies and gentlemen. They are overpowered as fuck, and just generally not interesting. And this isn't talking about the other stuff.
Well, hold up, we like Perrin until...
well, we like Perrin until we get to his girlfriend, but I'm going to talk about that in my next segment.
Oh, okay.
One last touching on Matt. He also winds up accidentally proposing marriage to the Shan-Chan Empress.
How?
He gets a prophecy.
No! No more prophecies!
It's prophesied that he's going to marry a Shan-Chan woman. And it turns out the way you ask to marry a Shan-Chan woman in their culture is you demand that they are your wife 3 times.
Why did he do that?
Because he sees her, he realizes he's going to marry her.
Wait, why? Because the prophecy told him?
Yeah, and he tries to get away from her while accidentally referring to her as his wife 3 times, and she goes, "Oh shit, we're married."
This is trash anime rom-com levels of bad. This is
All right.
this is high school D&D.
You want to get to trash anime rom-com?
Okay.
Let's talk about the female characters.
Please.
First, I want to lead into talking about Robert Jordan's lack of understanding of romance.
Well, we are experts.
Clearly,
We're experts at this, obviously.
disclaimer: we are by no means experts. We are not Will Smith from Hitch.
Listen,
But
I've been dating someone for 3 days now.
ladies and gentlemen, please leave Dallen a round of applause. But on a serious note, though, this is actually a major point of contention in a lot of because I did.
So even fans feel kind of iffy about this?
And I did some quote unquote research by looking at reviews for this,
Okay.
not mainstream reviews, but going onto people's reading blogs.
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And a lot of people actually talk about Robert Jordan. Not really being able to do good positive or negative relationships between men and women. It's
Kind of kinky, too.
And, we'll get to that. So, Robert Jordan's understanding of romance is basically people asked to get married. And that's it.
Wait, no, and bicker.
Yes, and bicker nonstop.
And not cute bickering, like just fighting.
No, like straight up spiteful.
Yeah, just angry arguing.
But, so the moment I realized that Robert Jordan could not write a romance to save his life happens at the end of book 1, when you have Nynaeve, who is portrayed as this bitter, angry farm woman.
Oh, she's great. I actually kind of liked her in the early books.
She's great, but she never changes. Ever.
That's sad.
And it gets old.
Yeah, it would get old. For one book, it was kind of funny. When everyone else is... Well, what I love... Sorry, tangent. But what I loved about her in the first book was everyone else was like, well, the lady said we have to go, so I guess we're just going. Like, and everyone was so passive, and she's like, no!
Yeah, but the problem is, she's like that for the rest of the series, even when people are making rational decisions.
Okay, no, that's stupid.
Yeah. And then she gets overpowered, too.
Oh, why not?
So, yeah, seriously, Nynaeve gets to the point where she 1v1s a Forsaken and wins. I want to talk about that.
Wasn't she, supposed to be really weak? Like a weak channeler or something like that?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
So, anyways...
Who is she reincarnated from? Reincarnated from?
Near as I can tell, no one. So, she
Only
eventually...
men get to reincarnate.
Seriously. She has this run-in... Or she becomes a romantic item. I have to put that in quotation marks. With Lon, who is this badass swordsman.
I legitimately didn't catch that the first time. They were talking, and I thought they were planning some secret plan. Genuinely, and then it's no, wait, these are supposed to be romantic getaways or side looks or something. I didn't understand it. It was not conveyed well.
Because it's never does Robert Jordan show these people are attracted to each other. None of their dialogue gives the slightest indication.
It's all off screen.
It's just you can't have a romantic subplot for what winds up being two of your primary characters that is this half-assed.
Yeah.
And it literally gets to the point where Nynaeve just straight up asks Lon to marry her. And I had to put the book down and laugh. I was like, where is this coming from? I missed several key steps of this relationship. And then you have... I'm going to save this one for last. Okay. We're going to go straight to Rand's harem.
Oh, yes. We need to talk about Rand's harem.
Rand has 3 women that love him.
Well, he's so charming. I mean, this man is irresistible. I think I want to join his harem.
This blank slate of a man is clearly the pinnacle of what all women aspire to date.
What? And he's like a kid, too. Isn't he He's 16 or something?
No, he's 20.
Is he 20?
He's 20.
I'm sorry. Okay. He feels like he's so young and immature.
He behaves like he's 16. He behaves like he's on the young end of 16.
Yeah.
Before his parents gave him the keys to the car. No, so he has 3 love interests. Elmendreda, Elaine, and Avienda. The one who's so uninteresting that I constantly forget her name. Because Avienda does nothing but get angry at him.
For liking other women?
She's the one who's okay with it.
Oh, okay.
She's an Aiel, and they have pluralistic marriage is a thing in her culture, so she isn't bothered by it. The thing is, she just behaves like a the whole time.
Oh my god.
So
that's going to get us in trouble. Yeah. I don't know, I may have to bleep that one out. Hold on, where are we at? 58, 59. Okay, I gotta write that down. The YouTube censors may not let me get away with that one. Go on.
Sorry, I may drop that one a few more times. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're okay. I'm just gonna write them down.
So, she does nothing but yell at Rand for not understanding her culture, while at the same time, At the same time, she never makes any attempt to understand him or the culture he comes from.
Yeah.
It is an entirely one-sided thing where she's like, I'm in love with you, so you're going to do this the way I say it, which is not how a healthy relationship works.
What, do you think any of these relationships are healthy?
Oh, none of them are, and I haven't even gotten to the toxic one yet.
Oh.
Okay, so then you have Elaine, who is the princess, who behaves like a straight-up diva. Okay. I was constantly waiting for someone to walk up to Elaine and slap her and go, you need to grow the hell up and fast.
Yeah.
Your
Why
mother,
is she hanging around with them in all this danger if she can't handle things?
She was getting trained to become a magic user.
Yeah, I remember that in the book.
And basically that's the whole reason she's there. She gets caught up in circumstances.
And she just goes along with it like everyone else.
So she gets this...
was she collared with everyone else?
She was collared with Egwin in
That's
book
like
2.
all of book 2 was about that. Yeah. It's the only thing I remember about it, at least.
Yeah.
And there's the mirror dimension.
So she has this whole juvenile thing with Rand, and then you have Elmandreda, who... She can see the future, and that's totes not magic either. And you think they would use that to their advantage.
Why do you need to see the future when you have prophecies?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Elmandreda is the resigned one who knows that Rand's going to wind up with 3 women because she sees it happen in book 1.
Yeah, I remember that. That's prophesied too.
She's the only one of the 3 I like because she behaves like an actual girl does.
Like she's just not happy about all this.
Yeah. She's not happy, but she sucks it up and deals with it because she genuinely likes Rand. Unfortunately, in my next little bit, we're going to talk about some sexual mishaps.
Oh boy, my favorite type of mishap.
because there's a scene where it stops being cute and it becomes a little alarming. So there's that. None of them have really well thought out relationships.
Why do they like Rand?
Yes.
Okay.
Avienda realizes she loves Rand after they have the most cliche moment where he accidentally teleports them to another continent. In the middle of...
Hold up!
Yes! And they're in the middle of the snow, and he has to figure out how he teleported them so he can get them back. Yes, and it goes exactly where it is. It's like, Rand, I need body heat.
No!
And they have body heat, and then they start sexing.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and then...
Wait, do they have any chemistry before this?
No.
They just are cold, and so they sex.
Yeah. It's cold, and they cuddle, and then they have sex, and then she confesses that she liked him, except there's not really a lot to indicate she did.
I'm so confused, because that's not how that works. I'm 90% sure. Again, with all of my romantic history, I'm obviously a huge romantic expert, but I'm pretty sure that's not how that works.
This ladies, you have to take a number for Dallen. But
oh boy.
So Elmandreda is the only one where he has a semi-believable thing with her, where there's actually flirting and romance before they get to actually consummating their love.
And so Rand's okay with the harem too. He just thinks it's dope.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the kicker for me was after after Elaine, the third one, confesses her feelings towards him, they all 3 bond him as their warder, and so they can all feel his emotions. After he's bonded to them, they realize that Elaine's the only one that hasn't had sex with him. So the other 2 leave the room. Rand and Elaine have sex, and because of the warder bond, they are aware of everything.
Oh gosh, stop! That's the... Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But while we're on the topic of sex, that's not the weird one.
That's not the... That's the normal one.
That's the normal one.
Okay, wait, is Robert Jordan Mormon? He has to be Mormon.
No, he's... I looked it up. He's apparently Episcopalian.
I don't understand.
But no, so you have a scene where... there's 2 other sex scenes that stood out to me. You have a scene...
Wait, there's more than that, but those are the ones that stood out?
Yeah, these 3 were the ones that stood out.
Oh...
Elmandreda at one soul. Yeah. Elmandreda at one point. There's a part where there's this lady that tries to usurp Rand one moment.
Wait, but the dragon has to be a dude. How do you usurp?
He becomes interim king of Caerhine.
Oh, because he's Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
And someone tries to usurp his claim to the throne.
His claim of being Jesus.
Kolavir, and he has her exiled, and she kills herself. And Elmandreda finds Kolavir after she's hung herself.
No. No.
Let me talk. She sees the graphic depiction of Colivere's body is she immediately leaves the room, runs to Rand, and he comforts her with his body.
Oh, wait, this is the fourth woman? She's not even in the harem? Wait,
no.
Which one's this? Who?
This was Elmandreda.
Right, the future seer lady.
She sees someone who's dead, and her immediate response is, "Oh my god, a dead body! I have to go get physical comfort from Rand."
I don't think that's how that works.
No, it's
yeah,
not.
no, I'm pretty no.
But the winner though is
No, I'm not ready. I need more. Refill me. You need. I need more. The winner.
The winner is Matt Cawthon and his relationship with Tylen, Queen of Ebudar.
Isn't Matt a playboy at some point?
Yeah,
too?
no, this is in his playboy moments. So basically, the Queen of Ebudar forces Matt to have sex with her at knife point, and then keeps him as her sexual plaything for the greater part of 2 books.
Why?
And when he refuses at one point, she makes him wear emasculating clothing.
Why does no one save him?
Because everyone assumed it was okay, I guess.
They just thought he liked it!
But no, this is played up like it's for laughs, and this is what I find is the most galling, and it's what makes me really angry, is that sexual assault is sexual assault.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you think it's funny or not. And this came off, I don't care if it's gender roles reversed, this came off as exceptionally rapey.
No, yeah,
it was
rapey.
It was not something I enjoyed reading, and it came off as something very insensitive to people that might have gone through being forced into sex.
I am very confused and a little disturbed. A lot disturbed.
Yeah. It was, the worst part of it to me was they eventually make a implication that Matt has been fucked to the point that he enjoys it.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, which is just wrong. And it plays to the fact that I think what Robert Jordan was going for was he wanted to have this kind of master-dom relationship between the two, but I don't think he actually knew anything about BDSM, so it just comes off as 50 Shades of Grey rapiness.
Have you seen that gif of Bob the Tomato?
No.
Looking down, and then it zooms on his face, and it's very confused. That's literally what I'm looking like right now.
So, that happens.
I'm upset.
But the male-female relationship that honestly makes me the angriest is Perrin and Fail. And this has to be its own thing.
Okay.
Because despite that, Perrin and Fail easily have the most toxic relationship.
Perrin's our wolf boy, for those that have forgotten.
Yeah. So he meets this girl, Fail, who is just the worst.
Why is she the worst, Connor?
No, so he is head over heels in love with her, and she does nothing but gaslight him and silent treatment him every time he does the smallest thing she doesn't like.
Oh my gosh.
And then, if he tries to stand up to her about it, she yells at him.
Oh my gosh.
And then she gets angry at him for not yelling back.
This is like...
It is the most bizarre thing, and it is painted like this is normal relationship drama.
What is his marriage like, Robert Jordan? I'm confused. I'm a little worried.
I don't know.
I'm very worried.
I don't know. I like to think that this is just naivete on his part. Maybe he didn't have a lot of romantic experience.
Maybe he just went and said, "Hey, marry me," and she said yes, and that was
No, this whole thing with Fail is very much emotional abuse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is emotional abuse. It's played like it's for laughs, which again is not funny.
Why does he think it's funny?
I don't know. And
Maybe he hasn't experienced it or known anyone who experienced that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and it becomes a central part of Perrin's character arc, is that he's in love with Fail, and he wants her to love her, or wants her to love him. And
that's really sad.
Yeah, and that this is the way he treats her, and he just takes it. And it's painted like, okay, this is just something I have to put up with because she's the woman I love.
Really sad. Well, because there's things you can even handle some what I consider off-color humor or even sexual-related humor, that behaviors that would not be okay in an actual relationship you can play for laughs to a degree, and I think get away with it. We both enjoy anime sometimes, and sometimes there's that, but it's because the tone is clearly treated as this is not okay. In normalcy, they're usually side characters or it's a one-off gag or something. This is a central theme of a main character of what's ostensibly a serious fantasy book, right?
Yes.
That's upsetting to me. That's a little upsetting.
Aimed for a young adult to adult audience.
Yeah, this is not for kids or supposed to be played on. Just, oh boy.
So that was the stuff with Fail is hands down, glaring structural issues with this narrative aside, that is the thing I found most galling.
Yeah.
It is the thing that made me seethe with anger, because that is not how a healthy relationship works.
And apparently
it is not. And if you think it does, you have you have actual problems. It was gross.
Yeah.
It was rough, and it should have. That's something that an editor should have looked at and said, Robert Jordan, no, you cannot portray a relationship like that.
Well, you can, but tonally admit that
you cannot portray a relationship like that and say it's healthy.
Yes. Because I think that's there's another interesting idea about how it could have been, some things that we could have.
No, and actually, there is another woman that's interested in Perrin, Barrelane.
Okay.
Who acts much more on the opposite end of the spectrum, and she's always flirtatious with him. Mm-hmm. She's happy. She's kind. She's extremely sexual in how she behaves, but at least she's not gaslighting him.
No, yeah. So she's just very forward.
It's clearly established that character Barrelane is because it's implied that she's a female leader of what is otherwise apparently a government that's mostly male dominated.
Okay, yeah.
So she's used to using her body to bargain.
Okay, yeah.
Apparently, which ew, but okay.
There's historical context for that.
I can see that happening at least.
The thing that bothers me is the
problem with Barrelane is Perrin and Fail eventually get married, and Barrelane still doesn't let up. There's a part where Perrin's wife Fail gets captured, and he does a rescue mission because he wants to rescue this horrible woman. I'd let the Aiel have the Shido Aiel have her, but have her and don't bring her back, please.
Yeah.
But and he wants to rescue her, and while he's rescuing her, Barrelane is along for the ride and still is expecting to get a ride.
You've been saving that
I'll be here all night.
I had someone tell me today, don't quit your day job, when I made a joke or something like that.
And now I want to segue, while we're on the topic of female characters, I want to segue.
I'm just sad right now. Please tell me the next subject's a little bit happier.
We're still on female characters.
No!
I want to still just talk about, because we touched on a lot of what I had here, for how Robert Jordan doesn't really, for a series that's lauded for strong female characters, I don't really think he's that good at writing them.
Well, and I think we should lampshade the fact that as two
adult men,
we are experts on the women's psyche.
As two adult men, we can tell you your mileage may vary,
we at least know we know women at least.
I do want to highlight the fact, though, that several of the reviews I looked at on blogs and such about this series did also point this out. Mm-hmm. How a lot of the women actually seem to come off as two-dimensional with variations in the same angry personality. And how Robert Jordan doesn't do a particularly good job of highlighting what women are like.
Yeah.
And it comes off as a lot of I think the reason why this got the praise it did for having strong female characters is not because they were strong female characters, but because it was written at a time where fantasy was still heavily male-dominated.
Yeah.
And I think it was, in reality, it just had female characters.
Yeah.
That were central to the plot.
And they weren't wallflowers.
Yeah.
He has a female character. I know that could be interesting. You could have aggressive, dismissive woman who's in authority or fought to get an authority, but
when every other woman in the story is like that,
more than every other,
that's when I have to stop and say, do you actually know how to write women?
Or just people? People are different. Men and women are different. There are.
Does Aes Sedai training make you? Does that make you unbearable? Or are these women just naturally like that?
Because I do think I like it's interesting when you have
I do get what he's going for is that it's a world where women are allowed to use magic. So yeah, that's going to have an imbalance.
That's great, but men aren't all the same if they're in the power.
That doesn't necessarily mean that all women are going to suddenly become unbearable.
Yeah, well, because I think the idea is women have the power in this world versus men who arguably have a lot of the power in government, business, a lot of those kind of things, a lot of the front end stuff. And so the idea is an inversion here, which I think that's interesting. I love dissections of that and cultures that have different paradigms than our own real world. I love that. The problem is if you draw that as a parallel, as he seems to be trying to do, men don't all act the same. Men in power don't all act the same. Why would women all gain the same personality type when they get power? I don't understand.
I can at least, out of all we've talked about so far, I can at least see where he was trying to go with this. But
that's fair.
It's something I wanted to touch on because I don't think it's worth the praise it got. And I think the praise for this was entirely contextual.
Yeah, it was better. It was probably novel, but it was probably novel for the time. But we've got nowadays, in terms of strong female, we just talked about Mistborn.
Yeah.
I love Mistborn's great. That has really unique, dynamic, interesting female characters who are all not wallflowers. Every single one is distinct. I could tell you probably near to the point of language how each one would respond to a specific question because they're so distinct in their personality.
I could not do that for most of the female.
Oh no, they'd all be the same answer.
There's only a handful of women in this that feel like they have genuinely unique personalities. Barrowland.
But are the men much better though?
The men really aren't much better, but
it feels more egregious because they got so much praise. Because
and if the praise was changed and they said he was lauded for his character depth, I would instead be complaining about how the characters lack depth.
Yeah,
that's
it's because you're countering what seems to be a praise that you think is misplaced.
Yeah, and I think the praise is ultimately Robert Jordan, his male and female characters in the series, I think lack a lot of depth.
Yeah.
I think I noticed it more with the female characters because that was a primary point of praise.
Yes. Well, and the other thing I've noticed, he keeps adding characters for no reason instead of developing.
Yes. Characters continue to show up all the way up to book 10.
Yeah, because it's good to have new characters, but he doesn't kill some off, or he keeps trying to come back to ones from 5 books ago that you've forgotten had nothing to do with anything, and be like, remember Bob? He was here.
Yeah, no, the ship captain Doman Bale, he's in book 1 as a one-off thing.
Oh yeah, he shows up for 5 seconds
for a few chapters, and then he's gone, and then he suddenly shows up again in book 2, and I mean that one at that point I was like, okay, that's cute.
Yeah,
they just happen to run into the same captain, but then he shows up again in book 8.
Yeah, he's just
he's
gone,
and by that point he's a primary figure now. And I'm like, you can't just what?
So characters are not what people are coming to for these books, probably.
Let's talk about world building and magic.
I would love to talk about world building magic, and by that I need more writer's tears. No, I'm good right now. Wait, I'll finish this up.
I have one response to everyone that thinks this is good world building, and that is, if the mic didn't pick that up, that was a deep, beleaguered sigh.
Okay, this is something I think we should talk about before you dive in. What do you consider? Give us some examples for you of what world building, so people know where you're coming from.
Okay, so first off, I do want to talk about the fact that while I do enjoy good world building, I do not necessarily think a novel needs, especially a fantasy novel, needs in-depth, highly detailed worlds.
I agree. It can be fun, but it can be overdone.
I also have to say that before I read fantasy, I read a lot of military science fiction. And that's because I think military stuff is cool. And that kind of colors how I see fantasy worlds. Because a key part, and Robert Jordan actually talked about this in an interview, is that a key part of fantasy is the grand struggle at the end of it.
Yeah.
And that usually almost always involves military action, armies fighting armies. And so I love when fantasy novels talk about armies and stuff. And now, I don't say it necessarily needs all of that, but that is one of the key things I look for. I look for that, and I also like to look for the political structures of how a country works.
Yeah. I love culture. I love different cultures that are thought out and
a bonus points if you can throw in a cool religion or two that isn't isn't clearly based off of something in that isn't clearly analogous.
Analogy, yeah, because inspiration's great. I mean, you're gonna have inspirations anywhere,
Yeah,
but isn't
and
like,
on-
this is discount Christianity.
On that last point is where Robert Jordan Epic fails. Everyone believes in nondescript fantasy religion. They believe in the creator and the light. So,
In defense, I've done that before in my own right. Now, I'm an amateur is the difference, but I sometimes think it's a good backdrop to just have characters that will have a religious thing without really delving into it, because I just don't have the time to flesh out. It's not the point of the story, but it is the point of this story.
Here's the one thing that I didn't notice until I saw it pointed out online, was that despite the fact that it's clearly established the light is a religion, there are no churches or anything.
No.
They're not. There's no places of worship.
There's the Crusades for some reason, but there's no...
Yeah.
At least we avoid evil anime Pope, as I call him. That's because that's the only thing. That's only one step better is evil anime Pope.
Yeah. So he fails in the religion, but then I realized as I was reading it that the main area they're in is called the 12 Kingdoms region, which just feels like someone took medieval Europe, Japan, and China and slammed them all together on a map.
I mean, that sounds fun, actually.
Which
but...
sounds fun, but is that really that creative of a setting?
No. Well, unless you flesh it out, because...
And the thing is, it's not fleshed out.
No.
It's very little of it is fleshed out.
Yeah.
But what is heavily fleshed out is the Aiel culture. So the Aiel, the east of the 12 Kingdoms, you have the Aiel Waste, which is this massive desert, and it is home to the people called the Aiel, which are this nomadic warrior group. As Dallen chokes on his whiskey. So I cannot stress enough the fact that these Aiel are warriors. It's implied that they are constantly fighting raids from armies of the Dark One, and that they live in a place where...
They're the people on the borderlands, right?
No, the Aiel are to the east.
Then why are they the ones always on the front?
I don't think you actually got to the point where they become central to the story.
Oh, okay, I did.
They don't really become a thing until the end of book 3.
Okay.
So
I did not finish book 3.
So, them being warriors, I expected a lot of world building about that kind of warrior culture.
Right.
And it's established that they actually have lots of warrior societies inside of their tribes.
Okay.
And it's just established. It's never explained. What they do explain is all the rights necessary to have pluralistic marriages so we can resolve Rant's harem.
No.
What they do explain is all of this Ga To nonsense that's basically off-brand Bushido. What they do explain is that Aiel people don't like swords.
Wait, why? Yes?
It's a long thing of the
okay.
lore.
Okay. That's okay, I don't care.
No. It's not worth explaining.
Well, can I point out something that I think is often missed in fantasy? I agree. Lore is great. World building, I really genuinely believe it. But world building and lore that doesn't directly affect the characters you care about is useless. If you've established that these guys don't like swords and that has nothing to do with any of your main characters and doesn't meaningfully impact, not just one character doesn't use a sword, but that there's a... How does that affect his psyche? Why doesn't it? How does he make him change the world? That fountain you were talking about later.
Yeah.
How does that make him view that fountain differently because he doesn't like swords, etc., etc., etc.?
Yeah.
That it's established,
it's
not explained, like you said.
Now the fountain thing, because they're in a wasteland, there's little water, which is why...
That's different, but I meant the sword stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you have this warrior people with this warrior culture, to not explain how their warrior aspects of their society work, I feel like it's just an epic fail on the world building, because that's on the front end of who these people are.
We need to spend more time on Matt's sexual assault.
Yeah.
We don't have time for the swords.
You have the Shan Empire, which also feels like China if they have a lot of royalty-free fantasy monsters.
Shan Chan sounds almost racist.
I didn't think about that until you
It's like one move away from racist. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so I found just a lot of the world building here to be lackluster. It's not that it bogged the story down for me.
It did for me.
Because, you know what, I'm fine with feudal Japan and feudal Europe and feudal China. That's really the backbone of what fantasy is. And I'm not opposed to seeing that in a story, but I don't want people to call this like the pinnacle of world building when
It's pretty standard.
yeah when it comes off as pretty standard.
I think talking about this, a lot of it is it's so strange the praise it gets. I think a lot of it is time and place because we gotta admit we're spoiled rotten with the amount of interesting and good fantasy we have.
For reference, the Wheel of Time came out. It came out after Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn finished, and Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn is kind of like modern Lord of the Rings. And it came out at the same time as Song of Ice and Fire, or Game of Thrones, which is very much just medieval England.
Yeah.
So I can get why, at the time period, this would come off as very novel. But the thing is, 5 years after this series started, Steven Erikson would start the Malice and Book of the Fallen.
Yeah.
Which I consider to actually be an achievement of world building.
Yeah.
Because there was very, very little medieval Europe flavor or medieval China or medieval Japan in Malazan. It's heavily inspired off of stuff like India and Native America.
Yeah.
And that's actually unique as far as fantasy is concerned. Wheel of Time just comes off as, compared to that, average.
Well, I think you could argue that it's a step in the right direction in terms of incorporating more than just medieval Europe, because you have thrown in China and Japan as well. But the thing is, people are acting like it was a great leap when it was arguably a step to make things more interesting.
It was not the great leap. It was just, it was a step in the right direction.
And then people made giant leaps immediately after that are...
I mean, I do not downplay the fact that this probably laid the groundwork for better better world building, but I do not think this is the better world building.
I think that's fair, because there's been a lot of things that I go back and look at. Okay, great example. First Alien, or maybe it was one of groundbreaking. It's a little slow compared to some of what you nowadays. I think it does a lot of things right, but I think there's certainly a lot of horror is trash. But there have been things that built on that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the first Alien.
Yeah.
But that doesn't. The first Alien's still a little sloppy and slow in places.
Yeah. Just because it laid all the groundwork, that doesn't make it perfect.
Yeah, but I do like Alien better than this, because I still think Alien has enough redemptive in and of itself, whereas this is painful. Anyway, sorry, I've gotten off topic. What's next, my friend?
All right. Next, I want to talk about the magic system.
Oh, don't do it to me, please. Don't do that to me.
We're going to dig into
Can we talk about Sanderson's first law?
Sure.
Because I think that's really relevant.
You go through this.
Sanderson's first law, I wish I should have pulled it up in front of me, but I haven't. Sanderson's first law, paraphrased, is that for magic to be satisfying, the amount of problems it resolves needs to be directly related to how detailed it is explained and how well it is explained.
Yeah.
The more you resolve a problem with magic, the more well it needs to be explained. Otherwise, it feels like you're pulling stuff out of your butt. And that's a key thing that all fantasy has to struggle with, I actually think.
Yeah.
And I think Wheel of Time struggles with it hard, because stuff is explained sometimes way after the fact, which goes back to your tension problem you talked about earlier.
Yes. And so basically, I touched on this earlier, you have two types of magic. Sidar, which can only be used by women.
Or two sides, because there's another magic system.
There's different magic systems outside of this. Sidar and Sidon. And those allow control over 5 elements, which is earth, wind, fire, water, and spirit.
Wait, no. What is spirit? Anything the plot needs at that point?
Basically, I mean, okay, in fairness, this is actually a reference to Chinese mythology.
Sure.
Because in Chinese mythology, those are the 5 key elements.
Okay, yeah, I do know that.
And I get that, and it jives well with the whole yin-yang concept of this magic system. However, the way they combine different elements to do different types of magic just doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Like, one of the villains, Mike Hydian, has a mind control power. And they never... It's implied that it's weaves of, like, water and spirit involved. But it's never really explained how. It's never really explained what different types of different combinations of weaves do, and how what you combine with what to get what. It's never it's never explained what weave they're using to make teleportation happen, because you can't fit that into those 5 elements.
Oh my god!
When they're throwing lightning bolts at each other, what the hell elements are you combining to create lightning?
That's kind of like,
when you're making energy shields or discount energy shields out of thin air, what are you weaving those with?
I get that. There's a slight element I understand of bending that, because one of my favorite shows is Avatar: The Last Airbender, which does a lot right narratively. But something that always bothers you have firebending, which is they have the 4 elements: earth, wind, water, fire.
Yeah.
Fire incorporates elements of lightning, which is really cheating, but the show does enough to earn your grace at that point that you overlook it. This does not.
Yeah. And then that's not even talking about some of the other stuff. Like at one point, one of the characters, Sion, or I think it's Swan. I can't remember the pronunciation.
We'll go to the nail salon.
She is instructing Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine on how to use air magic. And she does this by encasing one of them in air and lifting them off the ground as off-brand telekinesis, something that she never does ever again in the story. And then, on top of that, she pulls weapons and armor out of thin air.
No.
Something that, again, they never do again for the rest of the series.
Why?
If you can pull this kind of armor, weapons and armor out of thin air, why aren't the Aes Sedai so much more dangerous than they actually are?
Well, that's the thing is, I think that's a problem here, and this is what goes back to my D&D campaign. Although some D&D campaigns are way more detailed than this, but kind of, we make something up, we forget about it, we go on because we're actively playing, and you don't have time to edit in a D&D campaign usually.
Yeah.
One thing, I keep bringing up Sanderson, he's my favorite living author, but he tries to look at the minute details of what the implications of his magic system do. If people can do X, how does that affect the world? If you can make bread appear in your hand, how does that affect the food market? How does that affect... In a world where people can do all this ridiculous stuff, there's so much one and done that you can't even keep track of it all, and I don't feel like Robert Jordan kept track of it all.
No, I honestly think he may have just went from scene to scene and said, we need to have a cool magic thing here.
A little bit, yeah.
But honestly... The biggest part of it for me, though, was there's a big emphasis placed on the fact that magic users have to do this thing called linking, where they join.
I don't remember that.
That was after where you quit, where they have to join their powers together.
Okay.
And so up to 13 women.
So Captain Planet.
Yeah. Up to 13 women can link together.
Okay.
And that makes them infinitely stronger. And that's how they capture Rand at one point, is 13 Aes Sedai link, and they capture him because 13 linked is stronger than him.
Why don't the 13 link to beat the bad guys? I know Rand can do it on his own, but...
And additionally, those 13 women can link with one man that can then link with 13 more women, and then you have something that's like god-level power.
Okay, why don't they do that earlier?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. So the good guys can't get their crap together either.
No. But the thing is, so I also talked about earlier how basically anyone with magic is able to do the teleporting stuff and all that.
Yeah. You said anyone with any kind of, you said maybe not apprentices, but any medium-level guy could do it, right?
Yeah. That is a huge waste. Why not have it so that people have to link to be able to teleport?
Yeah, I'm on board.
That way you're forcing good guys to have to work together.
Yeah. And the bad guys.
Yeah. That they can't do these complex things unless they are linked. Like it's a necessity because one human being does not possess enough magic to do this. Unless they are like a bad guy and anomalously powerful.
You're really... Okay, can I spoil a minor thing for Elantris for you? It is a minor thing. Okay.
What?
Literally what you're talking about is how Elantris works. There are these characters that have this magic, and the way it works is... I think it's 20-something people get together and they sacrifice their own flesh, and that's how they teleport people. They literally have people that are like fodder to die, because they don't have to all be mage users, but you have to get people together to form like a circle of energy. They get sacrificed, and that is what allows people to teleport, and that's a very important aspect of Elantris later on. Exactly what you're talking about. I think you'll like that book when you get to it.
So the fact that this magic has that element of interdependency but never capitalizes on it is, I think, just a huge missed opportunity with the magic.
This seems like a book that wants to be about human relationships but doesn't understand what human relationships are like.
So there's that. Now, if you're a male magic user and you're channeling Sidon, you go insane.
Why are the men so much stronger than the women on average?
Because the plot said so.
Okay. Because I get that it makes you insane, but does insanity make you stronger? Is that implied in the book, or is it just...
No, it's actually, they literally just say that men are per capita stronger than women.
Just worked out that way. Okay,
that's... male magic users, I believe, are rarer. And men are better at fire and earth magic, whereas women are better at water and wind, and both are equal in spirit.
Okay.
So... Yeah.
Okay. Because you know what could have even been an interesting idea, and maybe this is... But you have the idea that because there's fewer male magic users, I love the idea of the size of the... What's the main thing called? The sides of... whatever, Sidar?
Sidar and Sidon.
Yeah, Sidar and Sidon. If they're like energy that's always trying to press into the world, and like the channelers are like portals into that, because there are fewer men, that the few that can use magic, it comes out stronger in them. That's a cool, interesting idea, I think, but that doesn't sound like it.
There is nothing to indicate that.
Okay. See, because that could have been cool. Wouldn't that have made some sense, though?
As far as I read, there was nothing to indicate that. But I want to talk about the insanity, because a lot of this is seen through the lens of Rand al'Thor.
He handled sex so well. How will he handle mental illness? I can only imagine.
Yeah, Rand's insanity is like a mild inconvenience. He is.
It's actually helpful sometimes. He said too.
No. At one point, the crazy voice of his past self explains to him how to get out of the situation, and it's just so half-assed, and it comes off like someone trying to explain what schizophrenia is without actually knowing what schizophrenia is.
I have friends, not who have schizophrenia, but who really genuinely struggle with debilitating mental illnesses. There are people who I dearly love who obviously struggle with this, and it's very different than what's described as just a voice going, "Hey, what if you like robbed that guy?" It doesn't quite rob, but it makes it so hard to make decisions, which is an aspect that, from what I read at least, is completely ignored. It's not a devil sitting on your shoulder giving you bad ideas. It's something that warps your ability to choose consciously and make intelligent decisions most of the time, from what I've seen. And that aspect is so lost because it isn't just a bad idea entering your head. It's the inability or near inability to counter that with good ideas.
Yeah. And Rand is shown that he can still make good decisions.
He can rationalize.
He can rationalize. He makes tactical decisions. He has battlefield moments in this. So his insanity really comes off as half-assed.
Yeah.
And the fact, honestly, I feel like, one, that's offensive to mentally ill people. And two, if you can't do it right, why? Well, just why?
Because I love the idea. There's stories about...
Why not make it so that when they channel Sidon, it slowly deteriorates their bodies?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that actually be more beneficial to... Because Shaitan is the one that cursed male magic to cause its wielders to go insane. Why not make it so that if they channel magic, their body slowly becomes like leprous or something?
Yeah.
So that Rand, by the time he gets to the end of the series, is like this leper wrapped up in bandages who's only good for one last fight.
I love that idea.
That would have been awesome.
You're really going to like Elantris. But I love that. Well, the other thing that I think is just... Because I think there's an idea where... There's a good idea for someone who... Especially in this semi-medieval world where maybe mental health care isn't at the level it is nowadays, you know what I mean? Where you have someone who doesn't know what actual symptoms of severe debilitating mental illness are like, has a voice in their head, thinks they're going insane, but it's something different. I love that idea, but it's actually played up as insanity. The voice in his head, which is an actual person. That's what bothers me. It's not like... Because there are... Again, I played... Because I can't relate directly to people who experience schizophrenia or voices, but the closest thing that was an experience to me that I felt helped me understand was playing Senua's Sacrifice. Hellblade, the game. Yeah. Which has, from what I can tell from people who've struggled with this, who have said it does a good job of... the game,
voices. The game developers for that one actually interviewed people with psychosis and schizophrenia to actually understand how it works.
And so that's my reference point as someone who doesn't struggle with that. But there's an idea, there's an overwhelming sense of these voices that are coming from physical space between you, but they're not real, and that's the struggle there. This dude actually has just another dude in his head. It's not insanity. He can still rationalize. The other voice in his head isn't a projection or part of his brain that isn't working properly. It is literally a spiritual force from the past that is another guy. I'm sorry, I went on a tangent, but that does bother me. I care for my friends that struggle with this, and to see it displayed so sillily bothers me.
Okay. Now, here is where we're going to talk about... so, once you get to about book 8 or 9, it's revealed that there is a second magic system. Oh. So there's... And okay, in theory, I like this, because yin-yang is a big part of the series. So the idea that there's a good magic system and an evil magic system, I can get behind. The fact is, evil magic system makes no goddamn sense.
Okay.
Because it makes you batshit crazy. And this was the magic system made by Shaitan, the bad guy. So why?
Wait, if he's Satan, is there like a god? Is the yin yang the god? I'm confused.
There's like a god called the Creator that
he just doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So this is a very like deist world, basically, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So why would Shaitan bother creating a magic system that is
it makes the people that use
that is so poorly thought out that even his own master minions don't want to use it. I mean, if you want to win, why do you do this?
Oh no. Did they even explain like he didn't want it to be that way, and he just is bad at making magic because he can only corrupt? You know, because there's a big idea.
Yeah, well, it's never. I guess that's an inference you could make that because he's evil, he can only make magic that corrupts. But
that's a stretch.
That's a stretch because there's nothing to indicate that.
Because I think if you explore that, the idea is... Because, again, this is drawing from different religions, and there's a big idea in at least Christian theology that the enemy... Well, this guy's basically discount Satan. Let's be frank.
Yeah,
so,
but I mean, his name is Shaitan, which is phonetically similar to... Shaitan, which is phonetically similar to Shaitan, which actually means Satan in Farsi, I believe.
Yeah,
but that's the Islamic name for Satan.
Yeah, but there is an idea in at least Christian theology and probably some of the other monotheistic religions. Thank you. That Satan, the enemy, can't create; he can only corrupt things. And you can do stuff with that. That's interesting. Sauron is like that. For instance, they say he can only... That's where the orcs come from. So there's a precedent for that. But you can explore that idea thematically. And this isn't. It's just inferred because we've seen other fantasy books before.
Yeah.
Okay. We got to move on because my brain is exploding and I'm not drunk. And
okay.
If I'm going to talk about this more, I need
now we're going to talk about actual writing. And...
this is where I feel the least qualified, but also the most interested.
All right. So first, I just wanted to discuss some missed opportunities. Mm-hmm. I realize it's kind of unfair to criticize a story for what you wanted it to be versus what it actually is, but
I mean, it's so obvious.
Yeah, but I feel like this story led me on with good ideas that it never delivered on. And that made me angry.
Yeah.
And I'm a spiteful, bitter man. So
that's why we're here, right?
Yeah, so I'm going full bore on this. So the first set of missed opportunities I got are with the villains. Mm-hmm. So we have one villain named Lanfear, who is Rand's previous self's psycho ex-girlfriend.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about her. Can I talk about how they meet her real quick?
Yes, go.
Okay, because I feel this is one of the things that bothered me, and this is one of the things that made me think this is going to be so hilarious I could enjoy the books. But she disappears, and I got bored after that. Okay, they go into the mirror world. I don't even remember how. I think it's an accident. I think they sleep near a mirror, and magic happens, and they get sucked into the mirror world or something. It's an accident even. In this mirror world where they all go, everything feels like it's dark and evil and inverted and everything here is corrupted and evil. They meet a girl who's like, hey, you're real cute. What if you like ditched all your friends and just hung out with me like the whole time? I bet that'd be really hot. And he's like, I like this chick. Like that's legit what happens. And I'm like, okay. The cursed knife was pretty bad because they go, this is the cursed city, don't take anything. And he goes, oh, I like this knife. That's pretty bad. But you can at least make the argument that maybe there's some mind control-y magic around this knife that attracts you to... You know, the One Ring is kind of like that. Even if you know you shouldn't wear it, you want to. And these are untrained kids. This dude literally going, I trust nothing in here. And everyone's like, this place is evil. And then as far as I know, she doesn't use mind control magic on him. He just thinks she's hot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And he's even like, she feels strange and dark, but I kind of think she's cute, so we're going to see where this goes. All right, sorry. That's how they meet her, though, in the evil mirror dimension where she's clearly trying to deceive him and tells him to ignore his friends at every single step. Okay, talk about it.
So Lanfear's whole real motivation is that she's evil because she's a bitter, spiteful ex-girlfriend. That really,
Why didn't she join the harem?
She tried. Actually, we'll get to that.
We'll
get to that.
No.
So she really she's not in love with Rand as much as she's in love with his past self, and she wants to try to restore him to that point. But she's also evil.
How could she restore him?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Why do I ask questions?
The thing is, for what...
I'm too sober for this.
Yeah, we're going to next round.
Oh, no! Alright.
I lost count. I think this is round 4.
Is this 3 or 4? Well, the last one was a little smaller, which I needed. I'm going to be careful, but... Hot dog. Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So tell me... So her plan is to restore...
Ladies and gentlemen, we've gone through 2/3 of a bottle of whiskey at this point.
Cheers.
Yeah. So, she is just this 2-dimensional thing that wanders around the narrative trying to get Rand to love her.
How did she get in the mirror world?
Some magic users had the ability to just pop poop in there.
How did she know they were going to be in there? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. You said there were people that can track him, right?
Yeah, and it's implied that they are tracking him through the mirror world, but it's never fully explained how or why that works.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Because what would you expect?
Okay, I don't know what I expected.
Now, the sad thing about Lanfear is, despite having the lamest motivation possible, she is somehow the most combat effective Forsaken as of 10 books in.
Yeah, what's her power set?
She,
because she just mostly is hot, quote unquote.
Generic magic abilities.
Oh. Okay.
But she's the only, as of book 10, she's the only Forsaken to actually kill a main character.
Who's she kill?
She kills Moraine, who is the mage lady.
Oh, that's right. Female Gandalf.
Yeah.
Okay. Grumpy, kind of bitchy female Gandalf.
And really, saying that she killed Moraine is generous,
no.
because it's more like Moraine tackles her into a fire and they both die.
She was around when Moraine died.
That's the most complimentary I can be about her. But, it's the scene itself I cannot talk about with a straight face, because what happens is she finds out that Rand slept with the Aiel girl.
Wait, which one?
Aviend, the one that he cuddles with in the snow.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, she finds out about that and she flips her shit. And is like, he sees Rand and he's surrounded by a bunch of women just by happenstance, and she just immediately starts throwing magic at all of them, trying to kill them all. But she doesn't know which one Avienda is, so he's just grabbing women, trying to kill them, going, "Which one of you is Avienda?"
Is there any indication that he wants to sleep with these women? Is he just like a horny boy, or is it...
They throw themselves at him,
and he just is like, okay, sex now?
Yeah.
I think that's a little I know look, there's biological evidence that men tend to have more at least aggressive sex drives than women on average. I get that. But I would think there would be an element of needing a relationship at some point.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Sorry. So she throws fireballs at people and the Moraine tackles her into a mountain.
Yeah, something gets set on fire and Moraine tackles her into it and they both die in the fire.
Is this the backwards fire?
No, this is just normal
fire.
fire.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
See,
that's a good idea. Backwards fire's fun. Why isn't there more stuff like that? Yes.
Yeah, they're not allowed to use... The backwards fire is called Balefire.
Oh, yeah, Balefire.
They're not allowed to use that because apparently during the last war, the Forsaken blew up a city with it, and what they didn't realize is that it actually it can undo a lot of time because of that.
See, that's interesting!
And Rand is able... At one point, Matt gets bitten by a creature called a Darkhound, which is an off-brand hellhound.
Okay, sure.
And a Darkhound's bite's poisonous.
I'm calling it an off-hound now.
Yeah. Yeah, and so he's dying from that wound.
Like you do.
But Rand is able to cure him by killing that Darkhound with Balefire.
Yeah.
Which burned it backwards in time back to before it bit
Matt,
which caused his bite wound to disappear.
That's cool.
That kind of stuff is cool. They never really do that.
It's like a one-off thing.
Yeah. Or there's one scene where a lot of major characters die. They're fighting one of the Forsaken, Ravin. And he kills a bunch of them with a barrage of lightning. Mm-hmm. And it comes off as a really dramatic, intense moment because he killed several main characters with that. And I was like, oh shit. But then Rand hits him with Balefire and it burns him backwards in time back to before when they were hit with the lightning, undoing all of that.
See, that seems again, this is one of those things where this seems like he has good ideas and just uses it for one thing and then runs off with it. And people seem to like the implications more than what's actually there. Whereas writers that I enjoy, like Sanderson, think through the implications and try and put them in the works themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go on. I've gotten...
So there's that. Then another missed opportunity with the villains is the fact that they can respawn.
What?
Yeah, so Shaitan, so it turns out all the villains have these things called a soul trap, which means if their physical body is destroyed, as long as someone recovers the soul trap, Shaitan can grow them new bodies.
I thought he couldn't create things. Wasn't that one of the things? Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, okay.
He can grow them new bodies, which allows him to effectively have many of his Forsaken respawn over the duration of the series. Why isn't that their A game? Why not have a bunch of your strongest Forsaken go after Rand, and if he kills them, they just respawn?
Is there a limit on these?
Never explained.
Oh.
As long as the soul trap is left intact, he can recreate their bodies.
Are there...
Now,
only be using Forsaken?
It's anyone that has one, though it's only the Forsaken have them.
So maybe, but it's never explained why only the Forsaken have them.
Yeah.
I'd give that to all my people.
Yeah, I mean, if I was
infinitely generating armies.
If I was Shaitan, I would have hey, we're mass manufacturing these. Every Dreadlord grab one.
Yeah.
So it's like you have that ability to make it so that your arm. Now, if someone is hit with something that completely destroys their body, and anything they're wearing on them, they're wearing the soul trap too. It would destroy the soul trap.
Sure,
so
that's fair.
And so several of the Forsaken do die permanently because of that.
Yeah.
But the ones that don't die permanently because of that can be respawned. And it's like they never capitalize that. That would be the most demoralizing thing ever, that you fought this bloody battle to kill 5 Forsaken, and then they just respawn.
Yeah. And
they're back, and now they know your tactics.
But the thing is, there's no tension already, because we already killed them really strongly.
Yeah, that would require them to have to actually be interesting villains first.
This is upsetting me. I thought this was going to be funny. Now I'm just sad.
Next set of missed opportunities. So early on in the first book, it's implied that there are 2 false dragons.
Yeah, no, I do remember that.
Yeah, so
one of them even joins him later, right?
Yeah, so you have 2 of them, Mazrim Taim and Logain Ablor.
Mm-hmm.
Logain Ablor is captured in the first book.
And then he gets gentled.
Yeah, he gets gentled. And Mazrim Taim eventually joins forces with Rand, but then he becomes a bad guy and actually gets elevated to become a Forsaken. And he gets
Wait. You can just become a Forsaken?
Yeah.
Wait, I thought you had to be in prison for 3,000 years.
No, they can... Shaitan can elevate a powerful enough magic user to...
Why the frick doesn't he just do that to all the magic users that are powerful then?
I think it's because Mazrim Taim is supposed to be more powerful than most other ones.
Okay, well he is a male...
He's a male channeler,
which is
and
pretty powerful.
It's implied that he is near where the Forsaken would be.
Okay, I guess that's fair. So the Forsaken's almost more of a office than it is like a power boost itself. Yeah. Huh.
But the thing is, I thought the stuff with Logain Ablor, him being captured and gentled, I thought was kind of disappointing, because how cool would it have been if Rand, the actual Dragon Reborn, had to fight a false dragon that believes in good faith that he is the real dragon?
That'd be great!
That would be an epic scene.
Yeah.
There was nothing like that.
No.
And the moment I heard, there's false dragons, I'm like, we gotta gear up for that. It's gonna be amazing. It never happens. And again, that's me criticizing the story for something that doesn't happen, but at the same time, I felt like it was setting up for that, and it didn't.
It's an unfulfilled promise, which is different than judging for something. Judging it for something it wasn't was complaining that this book doesn't have lightsabers and spaceships. That's stupid. When it seemingly makes promises, even unintentional ones, and then doesn't fulfill on them, that's genuine criticism.
Yeah. So that was something that heavily disappointed me, and that seriously impacted my ability to enjoy this series.
That stack's getting big, man.
Yeah. And then the last one is, so Rand, Matt, and Perrin, our 3 protagonists, are what are called Taviran.
Yeah, yes. I'm mad. I hate that word. I hate that word.
Yeah, there are no evil Taviran.
Are there not, ever?
There are none.
Okay, because...
In fact, Rand, Matt, and Perrin are the only Taviran in the story. Why...
Can we explain what Taviran is? Because I know what it is. So
Taviran, basically, in this world...
They're also basically people that get probability plot magic, except for it's different than... Matt gets a double dose for some reason.
Yeah. They are basically... A lot of people behave according to how this thing called the pattern describes how they'll behave.
It's fate. It's a fancy name for fate.
But Taveran basically means you are immune to fate to a degree. And it allows people, these people basically have a degree of free will in their fate as opposed to most everyone else.
Hold up, though. That wasn't my understanding of it, and I didn't get to the later books. My understanding was that fate more tightly binds around them than other people, because I thought that's why the prophecy was all around Rand, and he has no free will because he's the prophecy and stuff.
It's that basically his decisions can change the fates of other people.
But not his own.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of the important thing.
Okay.
So I guess I explained it wrong, but basically they make decisions that can affect other people's fate.
So they have free will, but not for themselves, but for other people around them more.
Kind of.
Okay.
And it's implied that there have been other Taviran before.
Oh, yeah, no, because what's his face? Not Treebeard talks of...
Loyal.
Yeah, Loyal. These are all about it, and I hate that word so much. You are Taviran. He says that 50,000 times. They're like, why has it got to be me?
Take a shot. Take a shot every time Loyal says Taviran.
You will be blitzed. You will die from alcohol poisoning.
Once you get about halfway through Eye of the World, you're going to have a very good time. You won't know what you're reading anymore. You'll have a good time.
Kama Sutra.
At that point, you picked up the wrong book.
It's what it feels. Hey, some of the later books get pretty kinky, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Taviran.
So
there are no evil Taviran.
There are no. Well, first off, there are no Taviran outside of these three, which is strange because it would have been cool if they ran into other Taviran.
Yeah.
And then, what if there was an evil Taviran?
Well, here's another thing that confuses me. This is a very yin-yangy magic system.
So it's a very yin-yangy world.
Yeah.
So it stands to reason if there were good Taviran, there should, by default, be evil Taviran to balance them out.
I'm sure you... Do the good guys win in the end? You didn't finish it, we don't know?
Well, I mean, yes.
But that's what confuses me, too, because doesn't that kind of...
Now, I haven't...
I know, you've read summaries. We've read summaries.
I only read to the book 10. But my friend who has finished the series and who loves it for some reason told me that the ending is fairly open-ended, as in, like, they win this time, but it's implied that it's going to happen again, because the nature of this world is cyclical.
Sure, but I'm still confused, because the whole point of a yin-yang would be a balance, because it's actually, yin-yang, as I understand it, is not necessarily supposed to be a balance between good and evil. It's often portrayed that way, but of different forces, aggression and peace, and those two are needed to... Balance is the end goal. Balance is good. Chaos would be bad, but this seems like rather than focusing on the difference between balance and chaos, it's a focus of good and evil, but treating those as equal and opposite and necessary parts, which doesn't make sense because the whole story is about good triumphing over evil or trying to... I'm confused. It seems like the messages are mixed.
All I can say to that is yes.
Okay. That's our new catchphrase.
I'm on we're on round 4 of the whiskey now, so my ability to philosophize is going to be impaired.
That's fair. That's fair.
We're lucky I can still do literature. Speaking of literature...
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Now we're going to get into...
more writing issues.
Literary illusions. I'll talk about writing next. Okay, so there are 3 major literary references going on through this. Arthurian cycle stuff, Norse mythology stuff, and Christian influence stuff.
The Norse stuff's the most interesting to me, maybe just because it's...
Well, I'm going to talk about how he messes them all up.
Well, he does, but I at least like the idea because... I'll point this out. I had a similar complaint with Evangelion, which I really like, actually. Complaint's a strong word, but I kind of made fun of it a little bit. It's different when you're using something people take seriously as window dressing, I guess. Because... people generally don't think Norse gods are literally real and literally worshipped. I'm sure there's a few small factions out there somewhere, but for the most part, people still take Christianity. I'm a Christian. People take Christianity seriously. I'm not offended. This is not me getting up in arms, but it's one thing to go, oh, you did Norse mythology bad, because it's a mythology at that point. People still take Christianity as a literal thing that is actually, happened. And so when you allude to that badly, and people are still active enough in it that they know you're alluding to it really badly, you look even dumber. That's all. Sorry, yeah.
I'll get to that.
Yeah.
I want to go on the Arthurian parallels first. Mm-hmm. So... the first nation that this starts off in is the Kingdom of Andor, which is heavily seeped in the Arthurian parallels.
Yes.
So I'm going to just rattle off a bunch of Arthurian names and their Wheel of Time counterparts.
Yeah.
So you have Tom Merlin, who was Merlin. Moraine, who was Moraine.
Yeah.
Sir Gareth, who is portrayed by Gareth. Queen Morghese, portrayed by Morgause.
Yeah.
Morgause. You have Elaine's brother, Gawain, who is Sir Gawain.
Whoa!
And her other brother, Galad, who is Sir Galahad. And then you have Lan.
He's so clever.
And then you have Lan, who is
Lancelot.
Sir Lancelot.
Yeah.
And the list goes on. But the thing is, none of these people actually behave thematically.
Okay, yeah, that's what bothered me!
Yeah, no. So, okay. So, those of you who know your Arthurian mythology would know that Lancelot is he is an outlander swordsman.
Yeah.
He is the badass on deck for the Arthurian cycle.
Yeah.
He is the baddest one of the bunch, and eventually he gets corrupted.
Yeah.
And he's the one that causes the downfall. He is basically the one that facilitates the downfall of King Arthur.
Because of his more or less affair with
with
Guinevere. Yeah. There's nothing like that in the books as far as I...
No, there's nothing like... Oh, Egwene is Guinevere, by the way.
But that doesn't... There's no...
No, there's no it's just there for window dressing. So, Lan doesn't go through what his does. Gawain is the only one of them that actually does his portrayal correctly.
Yeah.
So, Sir Gawain is basically... He's the underdog of the Arthurian cycle.
Right.
He is that one knight that can't really do anything right, but damn it, he's trying. And that's literally how you can describe him.
That's the most accurate description I've ever seen. Oh my god.
And his thing is that he's also really about the ladies. And so he has...
Are the ladies about him, though?
That's how you know we're drunk. We're at that point. We're at that stage of the conversation. No, he actually does have a bit of a romance with Egwene that mostly makes sense.
Yay! 1 out of 20!
Yes.
Good job!
That's 5% ain't bad.
I would almost feel bad. I don't know if I feel better or worse about the fact that we're really heavily criticizing a guy who can't punch back. All things considered. Okay, go on. Yeah.
And Gawain, I mean, thematically consistent with his Arthurian parallel, he makes mistakes over the course of the novels.
Whoa!
But he's the only...
That's actually rare in the Wheel of Time. Someone who like actively has flaws and tries to work on them and stuff.
Yeah. Though I have to deduct points because he leads a military unit called the Younglings.
No,
I cannot.
No,
I cannot say that with a straight face.
That's not
because I every time I hear the words Younglings, I go to episode 3 and think of young Obi-Wan Kenobi going, even the Younglings.
Even the Younglings. I feel bad for him because that's retroactively a meme, and he couldn't have known that in 19.
Okay, guys, that's not a criticism. That's just us.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's on our end.
I see people in the comments now. I waited 2 hours for the.
You have our permission to flame us for anything except that.
So, but I don't understand why incorporate that because that's what does that do? What does that add?
Okay, so if you're going, my thought process is this. I like it when I see literary illusions like that.
Yes!
Yeah, when they are executed in a thematically consistent way with the source material.
Yes!
This does not have that.
No.
And that is why it is a sticking point for me.
Yeah.
Because it could have actually heavily improved the story if you had these characters doing thematically consistent things with their namesakes.
Yeah, I'm going back to Grandpa Tolkien, sorry. But he has tons of allusions to all sorts of real-world histories.
Real-world history and Norse mythology and Catholicism.
Yeah, but it all is thematically related to what the names are. You know, because he was what is it? Not etymologist. He did languages. Is that etymologist?
Linguist.
Thank you. So he did study. He studied history, and he studied mythology, and he studied language.
He was an active professor.
Yeah.
While he was writing this.
So it makes sense, and he pulled all that together, and so he did borrow things, and he lovingly transformed them. But the things he borrowed from were relevant and were.
Oh, another influence from Tolkien we forgot. Wagner's cycle. A lot of the Lord of the Rings was actually heavily based off of Wagner's cycle.
Yes. I thought you were talking about the Wheel of Time for a second. I was like...
Sidebar.
Yeah. No, but I get that. But all those things he pulled from had a thematic relevance to the naming relevance as well. This 90% of the time doesn't. More than 90% of the time. I'm sad.
Okay.
We move on.
So that's
Can't stop. If we stop, I'm going to stare in the bottom of this glass and realize why I'm here.
that's talking about the Arthurian stuff.
Next time we got to talk about something we like, because this is making me sad.
Going on to Norse mythology.
See, this one's fun. I know he messes it up, but Norse mythology is pulled on a little bit less, and I think it's fun.
Yeah, it's this one is much lower in the story, and honestly, I'm going to lump this in Norse and Greek mythology.
Fair.
Because there's references to Grecian mythology as well. Such as there's one character. Okay, so first I have to talk about the Horn of Valir, which is introduced in Book 2, and it's the Deus Ex Machina horn.
That's the one you blow and
all the hero. Okay, it's a reference to the Galahorn.
Yes.
Which is from Norse mythology. Those of you who don't know what the Galahorn is, it is a horn that Heimdall blows during the Battle of Skopnir, which is Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And when he blows it, all of the Einherjar, or the greatest heroes from Norse mythology, leave Valhalla. They descend on the Midgard, and they basically beat back Loki's army.
Yeah.
And they save the world.
Yeah.
Effectively.
It's again, talking about illusions in Tolkien.
Yeah.
You have the dead army that comes...
Yeah, the army of the dead.
Yes, it's very much that idea. That's throughout a lot of different fantasy mythologies. Okay. It's a great trope.
So there's two issues wrong with that. One, the immediately appalling one... is that this does not jive well in a world where reincarnation is a thing. Because these heroes are being reincarnated, so...
They're just talking to themselves?
Yeah, so it's just like did these guys selectively choose not to be reincarnated?
I did.
And they are living in the dream world. They go there to the dream world and have conversations with these heroes. And then something else happens I'll talk about next. So, wouldn't it have been much cooler if they sound the Horn of Valir and you have this segment of random people all over the world that only they can hear the note?
Yeah.
And it's like you have all these generals and heroes from all these other countries that only they can hear the note, and it draws them in.
Yeah, because they were the army and they reincarnated into these
because
people.
they were the heroes before, and now because they've been reincarnated,
I love that idea.
That would have been infinitely cooler than Matt blowing a Deus Ex Machina horn, and then suddenly you have the OPAF army show up to defeat the Shan-Chan.
Because again, you can do it. I'm sorry, I keep going back to Lord of the Rings, but there's so many parallels because they're drawing from the same mythology, right?
And the other problem with this is that since Matt can blow I almost called it the Galahorn, the Horn of Valir, why isn't he blowing it every time they get in a fight?
Is there literally not a limit to it? I thought he said something like, the only next time will come is the end of the world, or something like that. I thought he said something.
I don't...
Maybe,
I'm sure someone in the comments will correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not remember them saying that.
Oh my god.
As far as I can tell, what happens is Matt becomes the horn blower, and then they get the Horn of Valir back to the white...
Hornblower.
Okay. Can you grow up to like this? Guys, Dallen is on the other side of my counter drunk.
I'm not drunk.
We've had half a bottle.
I'm not drunk.
He is.
I'm not drunk.
All right.
I could do ABC backwards right now.
Dude.
You want me to do it?
No, let's get back on.
Okay.
track.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, forgive us for that.
I'll edit it out. I'll edit it out when I'm sober. No, go on.
I love how you slurred the I'll edit it out.
Okay, for real though. So Matt blows the horn.
Okay, so I'm sure if I did miss that we can...
Whatever, there's going to be 15 people with timestamps.
But what happens is they get back to the White Tower, and the Aes Sedai immediately take the horn and squirrel it away, and that's the last we hear about it.
Yeah, I remember.
I'm like, if you have that, why aren't you using it as frequently as you can?
Yeah, that's frustrating. But it's not earned. Also, is the other thing that bothers me, because that's one of the things, the additions that I love of Tolkien lovingly borrow from Norse mythology is Aragorn has to prove his birthright, that he's worthy to lead this army, that he is the rightful heir, and that these people will serve him, basically.
Matt just picked up a horn and blew it.
He just picked up a horn.
And blew it.
Frustrating.
The other problem with all the heroes being in Dreamland is that at one point, Nynaeve and one of the Forsaken, Markhydian, get in a fight in Dreamland, and one of the heroes, Brigitte, intervenes, and Markhydian pulls her out of the dream world, which means she can't get reincarnated anymore. So she's just kind of stuck in the real world. And I'm like, if you can do that, why do you need the horn? Why don't you just pull all the heroes out?
Yeah. Because, okay.
And on the flip side, why don't the villains do that if they have that kind of power to knock the heroes out of the dream world into random spots in reality where they can't be useful?
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, are the heroes going to kill you? Shaitan can make you respawn.
Yeah. Why don't they kill the things that respawns them? They don't know that they work that way?
Apparently, I can give it the benefit of the doubt that only the Forsaken know about them.
Fair.
I can give it that.
Okay.
All right. Last one I want to talk about is Rand is Jesus.
Oh boy, this is my favorite.
So, Rand is Jesus, and we know that because at a random point during Book 2, he gets stigmata on his hands.
Yeah.
Because Shaitan just decides to burn his hands.
I remember that.
And then at the final battle in Book 2, he gets a side wound that stays with him for the rest of the series. So my problem with it, it's not that I'm against someone having Jesus iconography like that, or Jesus body wounds. That's a weird word. Weird.
No, I get what you're saying.
But you know what I mean. It's that it's
They
not
forgot the feet, too.
It's not thematically consistent, because if you look at the story of Jesus as a story, then the natural climax of that story would be the crucifixion.
Yes.
Where he sustains the stigmata wounds by being crucified, and then the denouement is he gets the side wound.
Yes.
To prove he's dead.
Yes.
So why, if you have to have Rand get the stigmata and the side wound, why doesn't that happen during the final confrontation? So it's thematically consistent with him being Jesus.
Is the implication that he's the reincarnation of Jesus?
I guess.
I have no idea. This is the same thing. Again, I just keep bringing up Evangelion because it's hilarious. This the one because we were watching Evangelion again.
Yeah.
I really enjoy Evangelion. It has a lot of fun. But there's a part, and I think is it the rebuild movies that happens?
Yeah, it's in the rebuild movies where he's
holding an angel,
back the angel and it stabs into his hands, and you were on my couch.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were sober up. You go, like Jesus!
Yeah, I said, I get it! Like Jesus! No, that was me 100. The sad thing is I'm kind of dumber when I'm sober. But I haven't had enough. I'm good. But it just, that burns my brain. Because here's what I think. Again, as a believing Christian, doesn't offend me. I think it's stupid. As a literary critic, it bothers me. As a Christian, it doesn't. Because you can do stuff with Jesus iconography that I think is fun. The Matrix, different enough that it's fun. You have a chosen one that there's some Jesus.
Yeah.
I think it works fine. Superman, literally because it's supposed to be a kind of reinterpretation of the Jewish Messiah, which Jesus is supposed to be from Christian views. All that's fine. It doesn't, I'm not like, because it's thematically works in the story. So the part of me, because I can separate fiction from reality. I take Christianity seriously, but fiction is fiction. I'm not offended about that. But as a literary critic, I get so mad because this has nothing to do with anything. It'd be like if they had to meditate and be like, I'm the Buddha. And I'm like, why? No, you're not. I don't understand. Is the idea because he's a Christian? Well, and so but why does Rand doesn't do anything Christ-like?
No.
He's not supposed to be literally God or the Son of God or the divine incarnate in mortal form. He's just a really strong dude. I don't get it. I don't know.
And the other thing I have, thematically, the idea of Jesus doesn't mesh well with the yin-yang concept of this world.
No, it does not.
I mean, thematically, it just doesn't. I feel like it's something Robert Jordan shoehorned in.
Yeah, I think it's like the Evangelion thing, like Jesus. But the difference is, Anno has more or less said that he just thought the iconography looked cool.
Yeah,
and he basically he's been a little shy about it. But he's more or less said, I thought it looked cool, and I went, and I agree, crosses look cool. Stigmata is very so I can look past that. But this I feel like is something that the guy Robert Jordan, I don't know if he's trying to say something or thinks he's saying something, but it doesn't say anything meaningful that I can pull from. Can you pull anything out of it?
I think he just wanted a Christ-like Redeemer character in there, but didn't know how to execute it right, so we wound up with Rand with stigmata and a side wound.
Okay, well, that's good.
Okay, and now I want to talk about the pros.
Ooh.
And I have this broken down to good, bad, and ugly.
How long's the good?
We'll be fair and we'll go with the good.
Okay.
Robert Jordan, and this is going to be backhanded.
Oh no.
Robert Jordan is very good at establishing scene.
I know exactly what you mean!
He is very, very good at it.
I get it.
To the detriment of literally everything else in the story.
I understand exactly what you mean. As soon as you said that.
Okay. In fairness to Robert Jordan, when I am reading, I feel like I am in the book.
Oh yeah. To the mundane details.
But that's the problem is I really don't need the mundane details. And it slows everything down.
It's to the detriment of pacing.
Yeah, it's good to have a nice scene like that, nice image like that every so often, where they're walking through a field and you give it the beautiful description.
Yeah.
But I don't need that for every room. I don't need that. I don't need that for every dress that every character is wearing. I don't need everyone's bloody hairstyle unless it's effective.
Well, that's something, as again, amateur writer myself, I know I lean way too far the other way. Yeah. We've talked about this. One of the biggest criticisms of my writing, which is totally fair, is that I don't give enough description. But my philosophy, something where I try and and I'm too far the other way, but he's way too far the other way, is that you need enough description to give someone the feeling of a place without giving the literal breakdown. When you enter a room, you're not supposed to get the schematics. Because when you enter a room in real life, you don't look at the schematics. Your brain interprets, oh, this place feels warm.
No, and actually, Brandon Sanderson, one of his lectures, he talks about establishing scene, and he goes, what you really need is just a few key details.
Yep.
That's all you need is you walk in and because no one actually scans a room and says this unless you're planning on doing something significant in that room. If you're walking in a room to get tea, you're focused on two things: who else is in there and where's the tea at.
Yep. And maybe if there's a distracting detail that's worth pointing out, there's a table in the
yeah,
middle.
Or maybe the TV's on and it catches your eye for a second.
Exactly.
You don't need every detail in the room, but Robert Jordan is bogged down with every detail in the room. And yes, it makes for pretty images.
You know, I almost feel like Robert Jordan would be a better, I know this is weird, but like a game designer? I know this is a weird thing, because I struggle with this prose, but like a man who, he would design all the buildings and the things that kind of sink into the background, but if you could put them in the background, because the problem with prose is you can't put prose in the background. Prose is prose. Prose is the camera you view the world through. He needs to be the type of person who is a set designer or something like that. I think he would shine there.
And I want to know why his editor didn't clamp down on this.
Because it's his wife.
I mean, yes, but...
And she was enjoying all the kinky stuff that Matt was doing. I don't know.
I think...
Oh my gosh, that's what happened, isn't it? That's why the Matt subplot with the Queen happened. Oh no, we figured it out. Oh, I need to chug this.
And on that note...
Guys, that's 5 for you. I'm still on 4.
Guys, Nightfall is starting round 5.
Oh no, we cracked the code. Was it worth it? Okay, but prose. Because I agree. In scenes where you need the gritty, because there are scenes, especially before a fight scene, which is unfortunate because then you have to balance that idea of obviously a fight scene is going to happen because you're getting more description in the room versus. But anyway, in scenes where you need more details, I get a very clear mental image. I've never read a Robert Jordan intro, to a room and felt like I didn't understand the space. But I don't always need to understand the space, like you were saying.
A lot of it comes to the detriment of the plot.
Yeah.
Though, and another thing he's particularly good at, I think, and this one won't be backhanded, is I think dialogue. As far as
you're gonna have to get me on this one because I'm not sure I'm on board.
The idea, internal dialogue with characters.
Oh,
yeah, the idea of being in a character's headspace.
Yeah, you get every little detail.
Yeah,
and almost he's better about not doing. Sometimes it's too much, but he does too much less often there than he does in room description. I agree with that.
But there's one scene that's particularly poignant where Perrin, I think he's trying to rally a couple of people, and while he is speaking at the same time, he's having an internal monologue of, what am I saying?
Oh, yeah.
And scenes like that were actually fairly good.
I think you're right, because I think the reason I had some hesitation to agree with that is because I think Rand's internal dialogue is very accurate. I just hate him.
Yeah.
And so, I get in his headspace, and it's not overdone, it's well done, I just hate what I'm seeing. This is slightly off topic. If you ever get a chance to play Final Fantasy VIII, it does exactly what we were talking about excellently, where you have a character, Squall, the main character, who is very tough and cool and very Cloud-esque on the outside, but
Yeah.
you read his internal dialogue, and so you get to see him. And he's crippled with self-doubt, and no one else gets to see that but you as in his head. And that is something you mentioned Robert Jordan does that I think is pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
But now we're done being nice, aren't we?
Yeah, now we're going to the bad.
But if you ever get a chance to play Final Fantasy VIII, it's a difficult game, but you might like that narratively.
All right. Okay, bad.
Mm-hmm.
Pacing. So, this is already a fairly slow-paced series. But
That's being generous.
Yeah, once the politics start, it grinds to a halt.
The thing that terrified me was, again, I made it partway through book 3, and I said, this is so slow-paced, I feel like 3 books would have filled one normal fantasy book.
And I told you this was before the pace slowed.
And yeah, and you're like, no, this is the fast-paced part, and I'm like... no, I can't do this.
Yeah, and the problem is that he keeps throwing in new characters.
Yes.
Constantly.
Yes.
And those characters have to have POVs. And it slows everything out. And
so much of it is irrelevant.
Yeah, and a lot of it is ultimately superfluous to the plot.
Exactly.
What Lord Dobrain thinks does, and people who have read the book know who Lord Dobrain is, does not have an effect on the narrative.
It would be like I'm gonna pull from Lord of the Rings again, but it would be like if we had a long POV from the Sackville Bagginses while Bilbo is gone.
Yeah.
Imagine 4 chapters of just the Sackville Bagginses going about their daily life, thinking about the fact that Bilbo is gone, and then cutting back to the spiders in the forest or whatever, and it's like, is that relevant? And you're like, well, they do show up again later, so I guess, but not really.
It is. I feel like half this series could actually be excised, and you would still have a coherent and probably faster-paced, funner story.
I agree. I think you cut out about half of it, and it worked well.
The other problem, and this is a me thing, is that the very paradigm of the story changes after about 3 books.
I didn't even get that far.
So the first 3 books come off more as an adventure fantasy series.
Yes.
Where it's a travelogue, and they're going from place to place on the map.
Yes.
And then it has a hard shift into political fantasy. And
when was Game of Thrones coming out in the middle of all this?
1990. They came out at the same time, 1990.
Tinfoil Hat, was this a little bit of a response to that?
It very well could have been.
I'm just wondering.
I don't know enough about the publishing industry during that period. I just know they
That's
both.
fair. And it wasn't as big before the TV show. It was still big, but it wasn't as big.
And from what I understand, Wheel of Time, I believe, outsold Game of Thrones when it came out. Game of Thrones didn't hit stride until after the television adaptation. So, but
anyways, what caused the change?
That shift in paradigm, really, I didn't like it. It was jarring, and honestly, when I pick up a book, book one of a series always sets my expectation for what is this story.
Right.
And so when you have book 1 be adventure fantasy, and book 2 be adventure fantasy, and book 3 be adventure fantasy, and then book 4 be a stop, we're doing politics now, I'm gonna feel a little betrayed by that.
I think you can do a slow change that works.
No, and if it was a slow, gradual change, I could get that. But there's not really that much of a change. I mean, there are hints here and there.
Well, yeah, they stop in book 2 and have like 1 chapter of some politicking, but then suddenly book 4 is a book of politicking.
Yeah, and that didn't mesh well with me.
No, I get why.
That's a me thing. But at the same time, I do think it's a valid criticism.
It goes back to what I was talking promises to your readers.
Yeah. I felt like this was promised to be more of an adventure fantasy where he's going to be traveling around and gaining a larger crew of people from different nations he visits. And ultimately, by the time he gets to the last book, he's made it to where the Dark Lord is, and he's got this army of badass followers.
Yeah.
But instead...
Mostly a harem.
But instead, we wound up with this sprawling political mess that's so big it collapses under its own weight.
Yeah. Well, and so much of it doesn't matter to anything anyway, because, again, we have that prophecy. idea, what makes a political thriller tick? When you look at the successful political thrillers, Game of Thrones, stuff like that, is the uncertainty. You're not sure. There's mysteries.
No, that
wrapped
is
in
the
mysteries.
main selling point of Game of Thrones was you had no idea who makes it to the end.
And that is undercut by the first 3 books, again, which have been adventure fantasy, where the plot is laid out, you know how it's going to end.
And it's undercut by the existence of that prophecy as well.
Yes. 100%. You know, it doesn't matter who backstabs who, because they're all going to get in line eventually. Everyone's going to come together, or be subjugated, and they're going to come together, and they're going to do the big fight like they're going to. And there's no getting around that. This isn't a world where fate can be escaped, or tricked, or misunderstood even.
No, this is a world where fate's a verifiable, quantifiable force.
Yeah.
You are subject to it.
Yeah. So I think that really undercuts. I think there's a problem. I'm fine with changing genres. When you undercut your own story is when I start having problems like you were mentioning. I think that's a valid criticism because of that.
All right, and now we're going into the ugly. First off, too many POVs.
Do you think there's a counter somewhere of how many POVs are in the Wheel of Time?
Actually, I found someone who put up these bar charts of the Wheel of Time. Like it's a timeline, and the timeline changes color. And it's for each book, and it changes color based on which POV it is during which chapters. And the later books are like rainbows.
Oh my gosh!
And that's just counting the dominant POV, not subordinate POVs throughout some chapters.
Remind me, like as in wait. Does he break POV often? I didn't notice that when I was doing it. Or you mean
in later books you have some chapters that rotate through POVs.
Within one chapter, he just does like the ellipsis and then goes to someone else basically.
Yeah.
At least he does ellipsis. I've read books where people change POVs without even.
Those books shouldn't have been published. But there's only one author that I can let get away with that. That's Alexandre Dumas, and one that was a couple hundred years ago at this point.
Yeah.
When those were written, and 2. He does it better.
Yeah.
Okay. But no, there's one pivotal battle in this series. The battle where they're cleansing Sidon, because it's Rand cleansing Sidon, and he has minions.
Why can Rand cleanse Sidon?
Yes.
Okay.
So he's cleansing the taint from Sidon with the help of Nynaeve, and while that's happening, the Forsaken are converging on his position.
Okay.
Trying to kill him, and he has male and female channelers all around him.
Wait, all this is in book 10 still, or is
this is in book 9.
That feels like that should be the climax to the series. I'm confused.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So he's in book 9, and this epic battle is happening all around him. And I kid you not, the POV is changing every page.
No.
And most of these POVs are people that have never had a POV before this battle. So I am like, what the flying fuck is happening in this battle? I mean, I'm recognizing all the names and everything, but the thing is, they're focusing on details that frequently aren't even battle details.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, this guy is now channeling, and he's linked with an Aes Sedai, and he thinks he loves her, and then fireballs!
Oh my god.
It is a mess. And it kneecapped the entire scene for me. This entire battle.
That's, again, undercutting the tension.
Yeah.
That seems to be the overall theme of this at this point.
And the thing is, there's a different battle sequence called Dumai's Wells that is one of my favorite battles in fantasy because he picks 2 POVs.
Yeah, he mentioned that. That's the one with Perrin, right?
And I mentioned this to Dallen before we started this, but he picks 2 of these. He starts off the first half of the battle with Perrin and the second half of the battle with Rand. And those are relevant POVs too. They're not stupid. Those are relevant, dominant POVs to the series, and he commits to them.
Yes.
There is no shifting at all except at the halfway point. He sticks it, he commits it, and as a result, it comes off as an awesome and fluid scene.
Yeah.
And that's what he needed to do during some of these other battles.
That's what's so frustrating, is it's one thing to see someone who clearly isn't ready to write, basically. Doesn't have it, I think anyone can write. I do think some people maybe have more innate talent, but I think even someone who is genuinely terrible at it can work hard enough and learn to write competently. Maybe not brilliantly, maybe not change the world, but can write enough that it's not embarrassing, right? I think even idiots with enough training, I say that as someone who I think I'm an idiot most of the time. And I've done a lot of work, and I've taken a lot of criticism, and I'm definitely not great, but I'm a lot better than I was, and I think other people can do that. What's frustrating is there are moments where he shines through, and you see that this could have been as brilliant as I think people live up to. I think the thing is people remember those moments, and they think, wow, this is great, but the problem is so much of it isn't that. So much of it is just bland, poorly written.
It's like seeing stars in the night sky. Mm-hmm. You see the stars and you remember the stars, but most of that's empty void.
Yeah, wow, that is a great analogy. I think that's very accurate, and that's what's frustrating because if you just see pitch black, it's just funny to mock, and we're mocking some of this, but it's just at this point you should admit it's trash. Someone has an overinflated ego. No one told them they needed to practice more, and you can laugh at it and move on. What's frustrating is there are moments where you go, "Wow, if more of the books had been like this is, I would have genuinely, not ironically, but genuinely loved this series."
Now, Robert Jordan, not to throw shade at his wife, but he needed a better editor.
I don't even think better's the because maybe she's a great editor for other people, but there is an emotional attachment for people that care about you, and you need people. That's one thing I really value about you is you do care about me, but you are willing to be harsher on my work. You don't like lambast me and try and ground me into the.
I'll slap you down if I need.
But you want me to be better. I think you see potential for me to be a good writer, and you want to encourage that, and so you want to hack away the stuff that you think is crap, and you know. And I think he needed that. He needed someone who was willing to be that harsh with him. Probably multiple people.
Yeah. I don't think his wife had it in her to do that.
And I get that, because I think husbands and wives should encourage each other, but maybe husbands and wives shouldn't be editors for each other because of that.
And actually, now that I think about it, I do remember his wife also was the editor for Black Company, that series I said at the beginning of the podcast that I love so much. So, and that series is one that I truly, truly unabashedly love. So maybe it is, as you say, that maybe she just wasn't willing to get tough with him when she needed to.
Well, I get that because I think, again, speaking from all my years of relationship experience, the 3 days I have here, but I do think ideally a husband and wife should be primarily encouraging forces for each other. There's a level of criticism because you know that person so well, but primarily you should be an advocate for your spouse. I think that's healthy. That doesn't make for good writing, though. Someone telling you that you're great and you've got this is great in a marriage, and you need that because life is crushing. But he needs an editor crushing him and a wife supporting him, and I think that's how you get a great writing, and he didn't have that. Sorry.
Okay.
Go on.
Now we are on my final stack.
We are 2.5 hours in.
Yeah. And this is my largest stack by a country mile. I am titling this LOL WTF because these are all the little things in the story that if none of the other problems existed, I could overlook these, but now these are just icing on the cake.
Oh, yeah.
And these are just...
They're nitpicks, but they're funny nitpicks.
They're nitpicks, but at the same time, this is just stupid stuff that bothers me. And I got to the point where it's a breaking point. When I can have a handful of flashcards...
Oh, there's like 7 over there.
Yeah. Okay, so the first one, I've titled this one Fucking Bubbles. So
based on the Nostalgia Critic joke.
Yeah, that's based on the Nostalgia Critic joke. Look it up on YouTube. It's hilarious. So basically, in book 4, Robert Jordan decides to add this new level to the conflict that are... And I cannot explain this in a straight face. He describes it as actual bubbles of evil that float through the pattern, and they pop up where the heroes are.
No.
So from that point forward, whenever the tension's getting low, there's just random bad shit that happens
for no reason.
Yeah, that they call bubbles of evil.
Where did the bubbles of evil come from?
Yes.
Okay.
So like Perrin, when this first starts, Perrin is in his room with with Fail having a horrible relationship, and his axe suddenly becomes sentient. And tries to kill him.
No!
It's like hovering around the room trying to hack him to pieces.
Oh my gosh!
And they get it stuck in a door, and that's how he survives.
Oh.
It is that kind of nonsense for the next 6 books. They will be walking. At one point, Rand and Matt are walking through a desert, and the sand turns into shadow people and starts trying to kill them.
Just for no reason?
Yes, because bubbles of evil.
I'm so... Oh my gosh.
It's...
Why do you even have to name... Why do you have to name your plot contrivances? He keeps trying to justify them, but he does it so badly that it just feels... Oh my gosh.
It is the stupidest thing. Yeah, no, I'm not joking. It's bubbles of evil.
Bubbles of evil. That card lived up to its title.
Yeah,
is all I'm
yeah.
saying.
I showed Dallen a preview of all of these cards the night before we recorded this, and he saw that and I was like, I promise you, the explanation is even stupider than you think. And
it lived up. You were correct.
Yeah,
you did not lie.
It's dumb.
Oh, that hurts my brain.
Okay, so the next one is there's a dream world called Tel Iran Riyadh.
We've danced around this.
Yeah, we've danced around this. Now we're going to go to the nitty-gritty. Tel Iran Riyadh is just this massive plot convenience. It is a dream world that they can use to spy on people, and it's Robert Jordan's way of advancing the plot without actually having to advance the plot.
Because he wants to be a political thriller, so we can't actually move around the globe. We have to move around the dream world, right?
Yeah. No, and that's what they do is they're able to spy on people by going into the dream world versions of their offices and rifling through the papers.
What?
Yes.
That feels like not how a dream world should work.
But
you literally can't read in dreams because that part of your brain isn't functioning correctly.
But it's okay, because if you're in there too long, you get attacked by nightmares. But it's okay, because you can escape the nightmares by believing they aren't real.
No!
Yes!
You are making this up!
I am not!
Oh! What causes the nightmares?
People's nightmares can just break free and roam around the dream world, but if you believe they aren't real, they go away.
I made my mistake.
And then the dream world also turns into a discount fast travel, because
wait, is that what the ways were or whatever?
Yes, but they have this in addition to that.
Do the waves just fade into the background?
More or less.
Friggin'
because Egwene figures out that she can open holes into the dream world and physically transfer them into them, and then you travel faster than normal through those and wind up in different areas.
Why do you travel faster than normal in the dream world?
And why do you even need that when you can do like traveling and skimming? And
you can't they teleport too? Yeah, I forgot about that till right now. What the heck? Oh my gosh.
The story has like 5 different versions of fast travel.
I'm so confused. Because there's even an idea you could do. What pisses me off is there are glimpses of a good idea here. What if you had different factions that had different fast travels and they all had different interesting rules? The problem is they all function the same, more or less.
Yeah.
If you had, like, okay, you can only fast travel, like, this way, this fast travel is faster.
And folks, going by his tone, I think I finally broke down.
Okay, no, I'm mad. Because, like, imagine something like, okay, you can teleport, but every time you teleport, you lose a finger. So there's real cost. But you can go through the dream world, and it is faster than normal, but there's less of a cost. You just get tired the longer you're there, or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
You can do this and make it interesting. It's possible. But these all function identically, because we have the mirror world, which lets you travel faster than normal in it for some reason, or travel without being...
The mirror world is the dream world.
Wait, the mirror world is the dream world? I thought it was a different world.
No, it's the dream world.
Okay, well that helps a little bit. Slightly 1%. Okay, you have the dream world, which lets you travel faster than normal for some reason.
You have the ways.
Then you have the ways, and then you have skimming. And all of them...
And then traveling.
And all of them function basically identically except for skimming, but skimming isn't... The one that's actually different is not used at all to any meaningful way. It is used, like, by accident by idiots. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dallen is broken.
Okay, I'm good. No, we're good. What's the next point?
Alright, the next one. Okay, so, one of the Forsaken, and she's a key villain, is named Maghidian, so called the Spider. And she's called the Spider because she weaves this intricate political web around all of her enemies.
Oh no.
It's just... Like, I literally wrote this on the card. I just feel bad for Maghidian.
Oh no. Do all her political plans fail
She's so underwhelming that I think she should just win out of pity. Because she genuinely sucks. I mean, damn it, she's trying and she deserves she actually deserves her participation trophy. It's just that she's bad. Oh, I feel like half the narrative exists to shit on her.
Oh no.
So...
Why are the villains more underdogs than the heroes?
No, so she first shows up, and what happens, and it's doubly sad because she's like the only villain actually trying. So she shows up, and the first scene she shows up is actually pretty cool because Nynaeve and Elaine are investigating one city called Tanchico, and they're trying to find they're trying to find Black Ace Sedai members, and they accidentally attack or grab her attention.
Okay.
And she thinks they're there for her.
Oh no.
So Mike Hydian walks into them, and she uses her mind control to.
Wait! She has mind control and she sucks.
Yeah, she has straight up mind control, and she uses it to interrogate both of them, and then make them forget about it, and leaves.
Okay, useful.
Yeah, and then they run into her. Nynaeve runs into her again.
Okay.
During the climax of this book.
Okay.
And what happens is she tries to mind control Nynaeve, but Nynaeve now suddenly knows how to counter it.
Wait, why?
Yes.
Okay.
And so Nynaeve eventually overpowers it. And actually, the way the scene is written is unintentionally hilarious.
Okay.
Because for a split second, he breaks POV and he talks. So it's like only magic users can see the magic.
Okay, yeah.
Unless it's something that's actually visible, like moving Earth or fire.
Yeah, like you can't see the things moving the Earth.
Yeah,
you can see the Earth.
When they're because Mike Hydian is trying to hit her with mind control magic.
Okay.
She's constantly blocking.
Wait. So mind control magic's like an orb you throw at people or something?
Yeah, it's like a weave that other magic users can see. So she's
Okay.
constantly blocking it.
Okay.
And for a split second, he describes it as, for anyone who couldn't see magic, it's just two women staring at each other intently across the room. And so I had to put the book down and laugh at that. Because I had this image of Nynaeve, who's this hard-bitten farming woman just staring down at Mike Hydian. But so she eventually overpowers Mike Hydian and encases her in air to prevent her from leaving, and that's it. And then Mike Hydian runs into her again because Mike Hydian gets a vendetta, because of course she does. And she runs into Mike Hydian again, and this time she captures her. Mm-hmm. And they get her in one of the Shan collars. Mm-hmm. And they keep her as a pet forsaken. For for like 3 books.
No.
So I'm like, that's a way to make your villain look cool.
That's upsetting.
Yeah. And that's how you make your villain look cool.
Mind control, because you can do... I have a pet peeve about mind control, because I think it breaks narratives a lot of the time.
Here we go.
Well, I won't get it. I could do a several-hour podcast on just this, but I will say, because the very short version is 90% of the time your mind control does not have proper limits on it. And I go, why hasn't your villain won?
No, and that's actually the case in this one.
Yeah.
Mike Hydian clearly states that if she wanted to, because the mind control is called compulsion.
Yeah.
If she weaved the compulsion well enough, she could make these people permanently her slaves. If she
and
wanted
she just
to.
doesn't.
Yeah, she doesn't.
That's what bothers me, because again, there's interesting. I have a very small pool just because they're the best. I'm trying to pick references that people will know a lot of. I could go more obscure, but a lot of people read Sanderson, Brandon Sanderson. He has a form of mind control in Mistborn, which is really, really interesting, because it's not all at once. It's the idea that you get...
Is this the spike thing?
Yeah, okay, so you've heard about this.
Yeah, that pokes holes in people's
you
soul.
get spiked physically, and this metal is weird, and it goes through both the physical and spiritual worlds. And so when you get hit with this physical spike, if you don't remove it, it opens up your soul to corruption, which is a really interesting idea, because it's not all at once...
It's you're slowly becoming someone else.
Yeah, and I love that idea. That's interesting. There's real weaknesses to it. The reason the guy hasn't just taken... Well, A, he has kind of taken over the world. Yeah. But B, even if the reason he can't just do that to all the villains is it takes weeks. People that know about it can recognize it and remove it. The only people... Like, there's a moment... Again, kind of... it's whatever. But there's a guy... And the way he gets it is he has an assassin go in, spike his, like, aorta, basically. And they go, wow, if we remove it, he's going to die. But the way it's said, it's actually blocking the wound. So we're just going to leave the spike in because that's actually the healthiest thing for him.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that gets him to be slowly corrupted. And then months later, he's like completely controlled.
No, the way compulsion works is it's like instantly reprogramming someone. Oh my god! And she even says, I could use compulsion to make you think you're a horse permanently, and you would believe it until I removed it.
But she just doesn't.
She just doesn't.
That's frustrating because there's no limit on that. She could be in charge of everything.
But yeah, and they keep her
as a pet.
Basically as a pet.
Why don't other people use compulsion? Why can only she use it?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the other villains, Graendal, uses it as well.
Like one time and then forgets he has it. Basically.
No. She has this like. Her palace is full of pet humans that she's captured.
That's kinky again. We've gotten into kinky again.
Graendal is weird.
Okay.
She also does nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, she's another one of those villains that just exists in the background, and you occasionally get an evil scene of her. But no, so like I said, they call her Mike Hydian.
Okay.
And that's how they discover that the leash part is unnecessary.
Wait, what?
Yes.
Wait, what do you mean?
The collar only functions with the collar and the wristband. The leash is just there.
Then what the heck are they using the leash for?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
kinky again.
Yeah,
We're getting firmly into kinky territory.
So they are able to keep her as a pet forsaken with the collar and remove the leash. And my question is, why didn't the Shan Chan Empire that builds these leashes not accidentally discover this? You've had these leashes.
They built the leashes!
Yes! How did you not accidentally discover them? Especially since the male version of the IDOM, that's what they're called by the way.
Yeah.
The male version of the IDOM doesn't need a leash.
You can't see my face right now, but it's just...
His face is one of raw disappointment.
Like, you just found out your kid, like...
You found out your kid shat in the water fountain at school.
That's basically what I just... You can just hear the Curb Your Enthusiasm thing. Oh my gosh. Okay, we gotta... what's next? What else do you have to disappoint me?
All right. Okay, these last two aren't as funny, but we touched on this one.
They're gonna be sad.
Hayden Fane, the merchant man.
No, that's funny. I don't know what you're talking about.
I just want to know why Robert Jordan decided to make him one of the most effective villains. And I have to put effective in quotes.
Yeah.
But one of the most effective villains in the story.
Well, I love...
That's so random.
In a less crowded book, I love the idea. One of my favorite stories, my favorite game of all time, is Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah.
And the main villain is a guy named Kefka. This is spoilers.
Oh,
but,
yeah, I've heard about
What
this.
I love about him is the first half of the game, he is literally basically the court jester. He is just a dude that is ineffective and is sent there. The Emperor wants him out of his hair, and so he keeps sending him on crap missions to go do nothing. And he goes around, and he's surprisingly effective because he's insane. And they're like, go take this castle. And he's like, all right, and poisons the entire water source for the entire continent, basically, to do that. And they're like, what the heck, dude? And he's like, I don't know. And so, but what I love about him is halfway through, the big bad emperor who's conniving gets just stabbed by him, and he's like, I'm emperor now! And then he takes, like, the god magic and just basically becomes a demigod, like, in charge of the world. That idea is fun. It's interesting. The problem is everything's so... It's effective in quotes. Had he been someone who was low-ranking, and there's this idea that, you know, evil was corrupting even unto itself, and he were able to rise through the ranks of evil and become a formidable... potentially even main-esque villain. That's interesting. The problem is he's just kind of a dude that shows up, kills someone, and leaves. Or maybe not kills someone, you know what I mean. But
well, from what I understand, in later parts of the series, he does become a integral villain.
Yeah,
but the thing is, he spends 10 books doing nothing.
Yes!
Nothing.
He's set up, it's too soon.
He farts around when the heroes confront him. He runs away like a little bitch, despite the fact that he's actually very powerful. As early as book 2, he is described as a very powerful being because just of having that evil dagger.
I think the real problem is he needed to cut down. Robert Jordan had some good ideas for a plot. He knew where he was going for the most part, I feel like. Because by the time, again, he passed away.
Yeah.
Brandon Sanderson finished the series.
And if it wasn't immediately apparent, and we should have said this at the beginning, we are criticizing his work independently.
No, I can't speak anything for the man. Oh, well, the kink jokes maybe slightly.
Kink jokes notwithstanding.
But I don't have I don't know him. I don't know him as a person. This is entirely about his work. I've never heard anyone say bad thing about him.
In retrospect, we should have said this at the beginning.
Whatever, I'll put it as a disclaimer. But anyway, the thing that is, he clearly knew where he was going because by the time he died, Sanderson had a bunch of notes and they described where the ending was. He had an ending in mind. Maybe not from the very beginning, but he knew several books ahead where he wanted to go. He needed an editor. He needed someone to tell him, you gotta cut this down. You need to remove this. It's not... Because the idea of, again, Padan Fane becoming an integral villain is interesting if it happens over the course of, say, 3 books. Not over the course of 10 where he does nothing until the 10th book.
Yeah.
Because imagine a scenario where... he becomes evil book 2, let's say. He's introduced in book 1 as an ineffective...
And it would have been different if he's introduced in book 2 and he spends book 3, 4, and 5
exactly.
being a main villain.
Yes, and then maybe he dies in 5.
Yeah, which is what I thought they were going to try to do, because he gets most of his establishment in book 2.
Yeah. But then he disappears for like 7 books.
Then he disappears for 7 books. And he apparently doesn't even get his until the last book.
It almost feels like he had a plot for 5 books. Wrote 1, 2, and 3, because 1, 2, 3 feel very similar.
From what I understand, he had initially planned this to be a trilogy.
That makes a lot of sense.
Then what happened was the scale cause to become a runaway freight train.
Yeah.
And basically what he was telling Tor Publishing was that every book he put out was going to be the, quote, last book. But it never was.
Yeah. He got... Because, again, I think a good way to do that is you can do world... Sanderson again, sorry.
Yeah.
Mistborn. Great. I love it. 1, 2, and 3 are a trilogy. But it doesn't stop there. There's a second series after that, and the world expands, but each little section feels like its own section. The problem is 1, 2, and 3 don't feel like a finished story. They feel like the beginning. Everyone feels like set up for something that never comes.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of these final books I read were all just set up and set up and set up, but there was no payoff to it.
And then, well, the sad thing is he did that for so long that he passed away, and Sanderson was left to try, and I don't know how successfully he did it. I never read those, but he was left to try and...
The people I know that finished the series have said that Sanderson's writing elevates it significantly. I'm never going to get that far.
Me either.
I'm not. Like I said, I'm at book 10. I'm done.
Yep. I stopped at 2.5. I got wise sooner.
Yeah. There's a lot of other fantasy novels out there
that you want to read in your lifetime.
And I'm not going to dedicate time to a series that has wasted so much of my time.
Yeah. Okay, so you got one more card.
Yeah.
One last card.
Okay. Masima.
Okay.
So
tell me about Masima.
So Masima is introduced in book 2. He is a Shi'enar warrior. He kind of disappears at the end of book 2.
Okay, yeah.
And then he resurfaces several books later, and he is a crazy communist cultist.
What?
Yes. So basically, he starts this whole cult that worships Rand as their lord and savior.
Wait. He's a like for the heroes communist cultist?
Yes.
Oh boy.
Except
for not, but
yeah. It's later revealed that he's in league with the Shan Empire, but that
isn't that where his wife is from that hates him because he's racist towards them, but not?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Which one are those?
I don't even know.
Okay, the warrior race. That's like
that's Aiel.
Aiel.
Yeah.
Shan or what?
Ladies, the whiskey's kicking in.
No, I haven't even had a cup.
You haven't had a cup in 20 minutes. You've had 4.
Whatever. I'm fine. I'm not driving, but I'm fine.
Yeah.
So, wait, is that the place I said sounded almost racist? Yeah, okay, whatever. Keep going.
No, it's just such a hard turn for someone who... For a character that's barely explored, for him to disappear for 5 books and then suddenly appear again as a crazed cultist with communist leanings is just hilarious.
Was this supposed to be like a political satire of communism?
I think for a moment Robert Jordan just felt the need to establish that communism was bad.
I mean,
because Masima gets visited by a queen and he has the queen take off all her jewelry, so he can distribute the wealth amongst all of his followers.
Why does the queen do that?
Because she's afraid of him. Well, granted, at this point he has an army that is tens of thousands strong of crazy cultists, so I can understand a queen actually being afraid of him.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm on board.
But
doesn't she have an army? Not as big? Okay.
Not as big.
Okay.
But the fact is that this kind of turn for the character is strange, though.
Because it's not
built up and it's not well explored. It's just kind of a thing that happens.
I think he just decided communism was bad. And
he needed a communism and cults are bad kids message.
I mean, fine. That's okay.
It felt a little out of left field. And no, I get the idea that you want to portray that some of the people that follow the good guy aren't necessarily good people.
Good idea.
But I feel like this was poorly executed.
I think you could almost label this entire thing good idea, bad execution.
Wheel of Time, that's the tagline.
Yeah, it feels like it. Well, that's because we are near the end here.
Yeah, so that is the end of all this deck of cards I have.
But I want to finish off before we log, because I want to talk about, we need to summate this. We need to ruminate. So I again, like we said, I think so much of this is good idea, bad. I think the takeaway from this is how important are editors.
Editors are very important, kids. Because if you become a paid writer, listen to your editor.
And if you're an editor, don't be afraid. Be loving, but be hard. I think you need that.
Because only you can prevent 2 drunk fools with a microphone from yelling at you on the internet.
If his wife had done her job, we wouldn't be here right now.
But seriously, and for all the people who are like, oh, you guys are just haters, I would have loved to have loved the series.
Yeah.
I would whatever notoriety I get from this, which probably won't be any, but whatever
I hope not. I'm hoping.
Whatever notoriety I get from this, I would gladly trade for just having a good series of books.
I completely agree. Well, and
if the Wheel of Time is actually written well, I would much rather sit here for 2 hours and talk about how
much
good
you
it
love
is.
it. Well, and we want to do later podcasts about books we love. That's one of the things we were talking about. We were just talking about how angry we were about this, and we decided this is the first. Sorry, started on a negative note, but I think the key thing is because we were both aspiring authors. I don't think either of us thinks that we necessarily have the innate. Again, this is the point. More innate talent than Robert Jordan does.
I know I have no innate talent. I worked for it.
Yeah, and so I think that's the difference is we're willing to... I think we have people who lovingly told us, get better at this section. This is good. This isn't. I'm not even sure. I don't think where I'm at now is better than Robert Jordan, but I recognize that. I'm not trying to publish my book yet. I'm still talking to people. I'm still trying to hone my craft and get better and get to the point where I can put something out I'm proud of. And you know what? People love this, and I think that's great. People have enjoyed my flawed work, but for me, I want to be better, and I think as authors, we need to strive to be better than, I'm sorry, what this looks like to me.
Yeah.
If I put this out, I'd be embarrassed. I'm sorry.
This series really is a mess, to put it lightly. I mean, we spent more than 2.5 hours talking
We're at 2 hours and 50 minutes at this point.
Yeah. And look, if you like this series, that's great.
More power to you.
But let's take off the rose-tinted glasses for a second and actually acknowledge it for what it is. And that is, it's a okay fantasy series with a lot of drawbacks, and I don't think it's wrong to acknowledge it for what it is.
I think that's the reason we're here. Oh, sorry, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And that's not an attack on Robert Jordan. May he rest in peace. I'm looking at this work as separate from him as I can, and the fact is that I find it, in my own personal view, lacking.
No.
And I've laid down my reasoning as to why.
We've laid down 3 hours of reasoning as to why. I think, again, my part is, again, like we talked about, I don't think either of us think on our own we could do better. I think what we hope makes us better eventually when we get to the point where we're publishing books is that we've got people who are going to strengthen us as writers, are going to make us better. And that's what he needed. He needed people to tell him, do this better.
Yeah. And to all the aspiring authors out there, the people that edit your work that say, that tear you down aren't useful, but the people that say, this is good, but this needs to be better, are the editors you need to find and listen to. And I don't think Robert Jordan had one of those editors.
I think, again, he probably had a really loving wife, and that's
he
a
probably
valuable
did.
thing.
But
he needed an editor.
That's, a loving wife is not a good substitute to a good editor.
Now, if I had to pick one or the other,
yeah.
I'd pick the loving wife. But
and again, that's not me trying to throw shade at his still living wife. That's just me calling facts as I see.
Well, you love her work. You just mentioned you said your favorite.
Like I said, she was the editor for my favorite fantasy series of all time.
Yeah.
And I mean that with all due sincerity. So it's not like she's a bad editor. She knows what she's doing. I just don't think she could look at Robert Jordan's work objectively as an editor.
I couldn't.
I couldn't.
So, if I was married to someone, I can't, because it's more important to me that I be supportive. And you, even if you try to be objective, you can't with someone you genuinely love, I don't think. Yeah. I think that's part of love, is that you're not objective, you know?
Love isn't entirely rational, so.
But that's off topic, I do think. Any closing thoughts other than editors are important and that we don't like this?
Closing thoughts, let's call it lessons to be learned from this series.
I think that's true.
1, think your magic system through.
Think your world through.
Yeah, because a lot of this series, a lot of the issues I talked about could have been heavily avoided if he had thought about key aspects of the magic system all the way.
I think, and this almost is just a variation of trust your editor or listen to your editor, is I think because there are people who discovery write, and I think that's a valid form of writing, but those people have to go back and edit. You can't discovery write and then just have a first draft.
Yeah. On top of that, genuinely put effort into your romantic subplots. Otherwise, I'm going to read them and laugh at them.
I think characters are king, and that I think is what.
Yeah.
If you're
Brandon Sanders talked about this, that characters are the reason why people read a novel.
It's why I read a novel.
Like your plot is okay and your world building is fine, But that's not really the reason why people pick up your books. People pick up your books because they want to read about the characters.
And that is 100% true for me. I know I think if you ask yourself, I think there's some simple exercises you can do. There's stuff online where even self-role play, where you have a character and go, your character's in this scenario, what do they do? Put a different character in that same scenario. If their responses are basically identical, you may need to tweak your character some. Because that's one of the biggest flaws with the Wheel of Time we said, is it feels like there's 200 characters, but there's 5 characters, if that makes sense. There's 5 people that inhabit 200 bodies.
200 characters, 5 personalities.
Yes, and I think that's a real flaw. So I think those are the 2 takeaways: are characters are king, trust your editor.
On top of that, minor things, people respect your villains.
Yeah.
Respect your villains. If you want me to take them seriously, actually make them serious.
That was your one where you got really mad at me for Briggs about that because my villain's motivation was so petty.
Yeah.
Which is legit. I get that. That's me trusting my editor, but actually I'm sticking with that one.
And that's another thing is, I wouldn't advise disagreeing with a paid editor, because that's their job.
Yes.
But if your friend's editing your work, you don't have to 100% agree with them if you think that our artistic decision overrules their idea. Always listen to their advice, but you don't have to agree 100%.
Well, and the point of that is that I think sometimes, because I've read this in books, you can have to make a bad decision to make a better thing happen later.
Yeah.
Great example. Again, I don't like Mistborn 3. That's strong. I think Mistborn 3 is aggressively average for a series that's wonderful, but it sets up the Wax and Wane series, which is my favorite work of Sanderson's. So to me, I read 3 and I was like, I don't really like this. This isn't that good. I felt like it was kind of a middling conclusion to what was his best work. But then when I read the sequel series, I was like, I get it now. And this couldn't exist without that moment. So sometimes you do have to make sacrifices to get but you got to keep the long picture in mind. And I feel like he let his work get away from him.
Yeah.
Maybe. I guess that's a judgment on him, but the work speaks as if someone let it get away from them.
And then let's see. I think that about sums it all up.
I think I'm good. And I'm sober, so that's good.
So ladies and gentlemen, that was our deconstruction of the Wheel of Time.
Send your hate mail.
Leave all your hate and vitriol in the comments below.
Yeah, I had 1,000 subscribers at one point.
I'm sure that's gonna.
What are we gonna bet? Let's take bets on how low it gets. I'm gonna guess 300.
They're gonna kick you off YouTube.
I'm gonna get marked for spam.
Well, so come on, please feed us your anger.
Well, in all genuinely, I appreciate. So first off, just appreciate we're not official critics. We're just 2 guys who read a book we didn't like.
We are mooks with a mic.
And I think all of us would appreciate the comments. I know you'll read some and I read some. If you've got some thoughts, things we overlooked, because we probably overlooked a lot. This is just a lot of fun. Leave your feedback there.
Yeah, and bonus points if you use complete sentences and don't have profanity.
Unlike us, apparently, but yeah. But thank you so much if you listen to this.
That said, if you feel like entertaining me, I am known to stay up late with a glass of vodka and not read hilarity on the internet.
Oh my goodness. But thank you all if you listen this far in. If you've got things you'd like us to cover or just criticisms or counter arguments or anything like that, I'm up for that. Are you?
Yeah, no, if you think you can change our minds, please.
Have at it.
Yeah.
But that's it. I think that's it for episode 1 of I'm calling this Fallen with Dallen still.
All right. Join us next time when I guess we'll talk about Elantris.
Let's talk about something we like next time to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Whatever we pick.
All right.
Signing off.
Signing off.